you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. It is a Friday on BK and Ferrario, which means no BK, but the three of us have you this afternoon, leading you up into the fast lane starting at 2 o'clock. And in the midst of that, a massive series begins for the Cardinals as they are out at Wrigley Field. That begins a 3-game series, 2.5 games out of a wild card spot after defeating the Philadelphia Phillies. 3 games now after last night's games concluded. So the first one of a massive series isn't Kyle Leahy, isn't Andre Pallante. No, it's Matthew Liberatore getting the start. And you might moan and groan and say, oh, no, Matthew Liberatore getting the start. This feels like another important one for Matthew Liberatore, but I've said that probably for the last 4 starts of Matthew Liberatore. You know, the Angels one was a disaster, and we thought, okay, well, maybe that's going to start pushing him out because you're going to see Quinn Matthews in the midst of all of this. And then he pitches against the Cubs, and that one doesn't go very well. The Blue Jays goes awesome. And we all knew what that was. Like, you peek behind the curtains, you went up against a team that couldn't hit left-handed pitchers. Libby finishes strong and then lays another dud against the Colorado Rockies. I was in attendance for, was not pretty. I don't know if this one's important at all, T-Bone. Like, as much as we can sit here and keep saying we want to see Quinn Matthews, you've got depth in your pipeline that you can bring up to put in this position. I don't think the Cardinals view it this way. Look, I could be completely wrong. He goes out there and gets shellacked against the Chicago Cubs, and in the midst of a playoff push that you realistically are in now, do you really want to keep throwing Matthew Liberatore out there? But with the exception of Quinn Matthews, they don't have a whole lot in terms of starting pitchers that they can go with. You're at an innings limit roadblock that I would imagine is going to start kicking in soon for Kyle Leahy. I think Libby's in this for the long run, so we can look at it and say, oh, man, this is going to be the last one for him. I don't buy it that way at all. I think this is just another start for Matthew Liberatore that they're trying to build off of, and they are going to play this thing out the rest of the season.
Yeah, because I got the sense from being at the ballpark on Monday and talking with people around the Cardinals that they seem to think they can fix Libby, is kind of the sense that I got. And not so much to where, like, Libby's going to become, like, the ace of the staff, but... Yeah. You know, if you can avoid those blow-up innings, you know, he could probably be a solid 5-and-dive starter for the Cardinals. And that was kind of the sense that I got around the ballpark when I was there on Monday. And, I don't want to put words in BK's mouth, but I think he was kind of sensing the same thing when we were talking down there at Busch Stadium. Mm-hmm. It kind of feels that way for the Cardinals. And I'm with you. Like, I would love to say, like, hey, this start, like, maybe it's the last time you see Libby in the rotation. Or maybe you got 2 more because they'll have to deal with the doubleheader with Quinn Matthews. I just don't know that that's the case because everything that I get the sense on is if they're going to piggyback Leahy because of that innings limit you're talking about, either they just move to a traditional 6-man rotation or they end up putting Quinn in the bullpen and he piggybacks with Leahy, or it's vice versa, right? Quinn starts and maybe Leahy piggybacks off of him to cover a couple of innings on the back end of that. They don't have anybody else then to replace Matthew Liberatore with. And that's where I'm kind of with you. I look at this start and I go, glad I saw the winds blowing in today at Wrigley Field, but the Cubs are the best against left-handed pitching, according to Fangraphs, right? I mean, you look at their WRC plus on the season, they're at 125 against left-handed pitching this year.
Yeah,
so
806 OPS, best in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I'm not expecting this to go well for Matthew Liberatore, so I don't know how important a start it is, but I will say this. If it's not an important start in terms of what it means for Matthew Liberatore, it is a very important start for the Cardinals themselves because you just took 2 or 3 from the Philadelphia Phillies, as you had mentioned. You beat Christopher Sanchez, who's probably going to finish top 3 in Cy Young voting this year. You just beat Zach Wheeler. You were the first team this season to beat those guys when they start back-to-back all season long. And you're right back in the wild card race, 3 games out going into this series. And we talked about it of, wow, this feels like they're back in the playoff race. And you could just let all the air out of the balloon if you just get a complete dud for Matthew Liberatore today, because then you go up against 2 lefties in Boyd and Imanaga who've had very good years. And then you could look at this and go, oh, boy, well, they just went to Wrigley, got their teeth kicked in, and I guess we're really not back in this playoff race.
Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. Starvin Marvin chiming in saying this is going to cost them a playoff spot, boys. They could have easily shifted him to the bullpen. Yeah, they could have, and that could have happened 2 starts ago after that Angels debacle. They didn't. And at that moment, kind of told me, it's like, they don't have any priorities to do this. And this sounds so weird to say because I know that the Cardinals value a playoff spot because it's ticket sales, it's revenue, it's really good for the fan base.
Cha-ching.
I don't think that's driving their decisions. I don't think they are in a spot right now that's looking at their roster saying we are making decisions to make the playoffs. I think they are making decisions that gets them to the ultimate goal. That's what Hein told us earlier this week. There's a destination that they want to accomplish, and they are going to continue to follow that path. Now, do they veer off of it every once in a while? Sure. And I think those veers that they did were when they brought up Blaze Jordan and sent down Nolan Gorman, were when they brought back Nathan Church and sent Victor Scott down, when they brought up Luis Gastelum. I don't think that involves a guy like Matthew Liberatore going down to the minors or putting him in a bullpen role where they've built him up and he's one of the few guys that they can just keep throwing out there to eat innings for them, to put Quinn Matthews in that spot. Because if it doesn't go well with Quinn Matthews, do you just go right back to Matthew Liberatore? What does that look like? I think there's a goal in mind, and it's setting them up for future success rather than trying to get to the playoffs right now.
I would agree with that. And BK and I kind of dove into that yesterday on the latest episode of the Red Bird Report.
Shout out!
Check it out on the YouTube page, by the way, 101 ESPN STL. I think we've talked about them being caught in between, and I think at times they kind of have, but I think I'm with you. They are leaning more towards let's plan for the future, right? Like you look at Matthew Liberatore starting. Kyle Leahy is the guy that we're looking at an innings limit, and how are they going to handle Quinn Matthews? I think he's going to be piggybacking with him, right? You don't see Joshua Baez up here. He could significantly help the Cardinals in a series in which they're going to see two left-handed pitchers in this one starting tomorrow and on Sunday. You look at who's starting at third base today. It's not Blaze Jordan, it's Cesar Prieto. Well, why is it Prieto? I think it's because they're trying to figure out if he's going to have a spot on the 40-man roster going in the offseason, if they should tender him a contract.
Because he has a hit on the season now.
Exactly.
A hit.
Yes.
Hey,
a hit.
You know what?
Due.
It's more than a couple of other guys.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
You look at the way they're handling the catching situation. They've moved it basically to Jimmy Crooks.
Yeah.
We'll see if they decide to do it with Leo Bernal or not. Like, it definitely feels like a lot of their decision-making is for the future than it is for the right now. Because if you're going on the right now, Matthew Liberatore's probably not in the rotation. Now, I don't know how you make it work because the Leahy's innings limit is really a huge factor in this, as you said. I don't think you're seeing Cesar Prieto start at third base. I think they probably would have called up Nolan Gorman to see about cashing in on the hot hand. I think they may have called up Joshua Baez to see, hey, he's starting to get hot. He homered again last night. Let's call him up here and see if he can help us in left field. But I think they're playing the service time clock on some of those guys. And they're saying, hey, it's better for us to just worry about what they are for the future than it is to say, let's make sure we take 2 or 3 from the Chicago Cubs.
And honestly, that makes perfect sense. But I do want to talk for just a second about the here and now with respect to a Matthew Liberatore. Obviously, he's getting the nod today. Now, when we talk about innings limitations, when we talk about constraints and all of that, most primarily, it depends on and it revolves around a Kyle Leahy. You've mentioned, obviously, Tanner, the notion, the idea that if you're moving forward and if you have Quinn Matthews as part of the arrangement, it would make sense to piggyback him conceivably with Kyle Leahy. But I also don't know if we can take for granted that whether we want Matthew Liberatore to eat these innings or not, that he can conceivably even get to the finish line this season. Last year, you think about having finished, he definitely petered out down the stretch with 153. At times, we understand what an arduous task it is for him to even get +4 innings. So I'm looking right now at that total of 113. I don't even think, guys, honestly, that it's some sort of a foregone conclusion that through August into September that we actually see him finish this year in the rotation for work purposes too. I think that may not be realistic.
I don't think Libby has a work issue.
No, I don't either. I think he's one of the few guys.
They didn't bring that up at all last year with Matthew Liberatore. We were talking about this in the office.
And he wore down the stretch last year.
We talked about this in the office. I think it was earlier this week, right? Maybe it was last week. The days are blending together.
That's the heat of the summer.
We talked about this where, I mean, it started to become real that the Cardinals were, hey, Leahy's innings limit was kind of the thing you started to hear on the broadcast. And wink, wink, if you're hearing that from Chip and Brad and Swing Dog, that means they're hearing that from the Cardinals in probably Ollie Marmol's office.
Yeah.
And then when we went down to the ballpark Monday, that's kind of the thing that was talked about. Is he on like a strict innings limit to where like he gets to a point and he's completely shut down? No, that doesn't seem to be the plan for the Cardinals, but they are just trying to manage that workload. Never heard that once from Matthew Liberatore converting to a starter last year. And I think they came to the conclusion it wasn't this guy got tired as to it was this guy's just ineffective. And I think that's where we are now, to where I don't think this is going to be an innings limit thing. If it was, they'd be in serious trouble because they don't have a seventh starter ready to go here at the Major League level.
If they had multiple guys with innings limits concern, I think they wouldn't have traded Dustin May. Or they would have,
100%.
they would have really been aggressive to try and find another pitcher in place of Dustin May to fill that void. I think when it comes to Libby, McGreevy, there's no innings limits. I would imagine Hunter Dobbins is far away from that being a concern. I really think Leahy's it. Who's they're concerned about, and that's the perfect entrance for a guy like Quinn Matthews. But I will tell you, as much as we're talking about Matthew Liberatore, my eyes aren't going to be on him in this game today as much as it's going to be on his battery mate, Ivan Herrera. I'm very fascinated to see if in back-to-back games with him behind the plate, a team runs wild on him. Because the Chicago Cubs, now they're not at the top of the pack, but they're 12th in Major League Baseball with stolen bases. They've got 91. But with Ivan Herrera, and I was looking at this in the 3 starts that Libby had with Herrera against the Chicago Cubs, all 3 of them, 2 of the 3 games, somebody had stolen a base twice. So it's possible that this is one of those games that you saw the Colorado Rockies go into it to where they basically said, look, we're going to be aggressive here. We've talked about it on the show, how if you're not looking at it as we're going to run wild on Matthew Liberatore and Ivan Herrera, you're doing something wrong. I'm fascinated to see how they managed that today, for how the Rockies kind of abused them in that game, and what that means for Ivan Herrera. Just like Libby, I don't think it means much. I think this is going to be the same conversation of 2 times a week he's going to get his starts, and that's it. But if you get back-to-back games with Herrera and Libby and the team's running crazy out you, that's where I think some conversations start to maybe come into play of how do we manage this better.
Yeah, I'm with you because you look at the Cubs 12th in stolen bases. They've got some guys that can really run on you. PCA will be one to really monitor if he gets on base. It will be interesting because they seem like a team the Cardinals seem like, hey, right now, not overly concerned about it. We can try and figure this out in the offseason. I think if you put them on Truth Serum today, maybe tell me if you disagree with this. I think they're kind of 50-50 on if they would keep Herrera behind the plate or not, and maybe even leaning towards keeping him behind the plate as a catcher. I think that's kind of my sense on it right now, but I think that could change if you start to see teams go wild. I mean, Derek told us on Tuesday kind of the equation teams run through their head on why they don't steal more on Ivan Herrera. And if teams aren't going to do it because they're waiting for like the perfect scenario to play out, then you could probably sneak Herrera behind the plate more than we are expecting. But if that equation starts to change and the Cubs and Libby especially, who doesn't hold runners extremely well, run wild on him, and that continues to be a theme here in the second half or the final month and a half of the season, then the equation may change on the Cardinals and what they have to do with Ivan Herrera. And, of course, then that has the trickle-down effect on, all right, well, what do you do at first base with Alec Burleson? And if Herrera's not a catcher, what position is he going to be playing? And is he a part of the future here for the Cardinals long term?
Well, Cardinals lineup today, we're not playing the lineup game because we don't steal content from other shows, but they're leading it off with Weatherholt. They've got Herrera, Burley, Walker, Church in center field, Wynn. Torres is your DH today, Fermin in left field, and Cesar Prieto, as everybody was hoping to see, gets that spot in the 9-hole at third base, which I wonder if Blaze Jordan's going to be the guy that gets sent down.
What?
Just whenever they decide to do that.
No roster moves thus far.
Yeah, we're fine right now. It's not happening, but just prepare yourself.
Why would you even put that into the stratosphere?
DH Torres, Prieto at third, Fermin in left. Just one of these things is not like the other. Anyway, he's Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Runs. I'm Alex Ferrario. Our Air Covered Service text line today, 314-399-9646. You can jump over to our YouTube channel as well, 101 ESPN STL. That's where the YouTube chat, the graveyard, is up and running. And apparently people don't like my T-shirt today, T-Bone. They don't like my polo. Apparently it's grossing them out a little bit. So I'm going to try and stick it in the camera a little bit more. That's what she said. We're coming up in 15 minutes. We're going to get into some NFL quick hitters, including a couple of young quarterbacks that are going to get some looks moving forward. But coming up next, which prospects do you want to see at the major league level before the end of the year? And on top of that, which prospects do the Cardinals think they need to see before the end of the year? We'll talk about those next. And a little John Mozeliak nugget for you next here on 101 ESPN.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So the Cardinals and Cubs in action this afternoon, a 3-game series at Wrigley this weekend, and a pretty big one. And no roster moves took place. Now, T-Bone, we were just talking off air. Taylor McGregor, who is the sideline reporter for the Chicago Cubs, just put an update out there that it's not going to be two lefties in this series. It was set up to be Imanaga and Boyd was the other one. So two lefties that were going to get the starts in the next 2 days. And it sounds like Edward Cabrera is going to be starting one of those in the next two. So you're going to get two righties and one lefty against the Chicago Cubs. I wonder how much information the Cardinals knew and didn't know, because if that's the case, well, now I think you can have the conversation about Nolan Gorman. If you wanted to have that talk of bringing him back up. Now, I don't even know if the Cardinals are even entertaining that thought, but he's hitting well. You could get a guy who could play third base for you that's not Cesar Prieto. And you could add a little bit more pop to your lineup and only see two righties against the Chicago Cubs, and then go to the Great American Small Park and maybe have him get some success.
Sheesh.
It's what you want to do when you're in a playoff race. Find a guy who can get hot for a couple of weeks that carries you to victories. Now, they didn't do that. I wonder if they didn't realize that Cabrera could be returning in this one. But regardless, Gorman didn't get the call up. Baez didn't get the call up. I don't think Bernal's on the spot that would get the call up right now.
I'd agree with that.
But those are the three guys, unless I'm missing somebody. Quinn Matthews, we assume, is probably going to see that doubleheader against the Cincinnati Reds that Cardinals fans want to see before the end of the season. But which one do you think the Cardinals are desperate to see before the season's end? Because it's kind of a different conversation, because you got the playoff push now. The rosters expand by 2. If you're out of the playoffs, you make different moves. But is there a priority on those guys that I mentioned, or maybe somebody that I didn't mention, that the Cardinals have looked at and said, this is a guy we have to see play baseball games at the major league before season's end?
Yeah, I think the only guy that I think they would put in that conversation, I don't even know that they would say it's a need to see, but I think they're planning on, is Baez. I don't know about Gorman. I'm a little surprised that they wouldn't want to try and capitalize on the hot bat, as you had mentioned, since he's been on a little bit of a tear and he's made some swing adjustments. They sent him down to the lab that they talk about down in the complex league to work on some adjustments. Now, you're probably right. They may not have known that 2 righties were coming in this series for the Cubs, because it looks like I haven't seen who they're going to push back. I'm assuming it's going to be Imanaga that they just push back, would be my guess. So, maybe they weren't planning on that, and if that does change the equation. If you're expecting 2 lefties to start, do you really want Gorman up? Became a good point. They've got a bunch of right-handed relievers. You could bring them off the bench, but I don't think I think they've already decided the fate of Nolan Gorman.
I do too.
And that is, we'll try and trade him in the offseason, but odds are we're just probably going to non-tender him a contract. And I think the only guy that they are going to try and make an effort to get up here is Joshua Baez. And again, I think that's not coming till rosters expand September 1st. Mm-hmm. It's like the path of least resistance, because you mentioned in the last segment, is Blaze probably the guy, is Blaze maybe the guy that goes down when they activate Urias, which is going to be in the next couple of days here. It's possible, and then that's like the only roster move you have to make, and then you can just bring up Baez without having to make an active 26-man move when you expand rosters on September 1st. So I think that's going to be their plan. I think that's kind of what their goal is. I wouldn't mind seeing Leo Bernal. Boom. Josh Jacobs wrote a great piece today on Redbird Rants talking about Leo Bernal and what he's doing and the kind of hype surrounding him down in the minor league system. I wouldn't mind seeing him up here for a month. Is it like a need? No. At this point, it's more me of begging for a want. But I kind of just want to see him, because the Cardinals would disagree on this assessment. I think we've seen enough of Jimmy Crooks, and he hits the ball hard. It's not leading to results, but I don't get the sense that he's a guy that I want to see for the final month. I'm more Bernal curious and would rather see him in that spot than Jimmy Crooks. You
guys are Bernal curious, Perea curious. Because you chill out over there a little bit.
Hey, I'm with Tanner.
I'm Cesar Prieto curious.
Well, that's your preference.
No,
that's your preference.
Don't kink shame me, Bradford.
Tanner, you hit the nail on the head, because I think it would be highly unfortunate, frankly, if we didn't get a cameo at minimum from Bernal down the stretch. Now, we can say what we like about still the limited sample size, all things considered, with Jimmy Crooks, but when you're talking about evidence, tangible evidence, we simply haven't been impressed by any stretch of the imagination at the plate, really frankly behind the plate too, whereas we've known for a while, right, organizationally speaking, that Bernal not only is he exemplary behind the plate, but just think about what he has done. When you talk about capitalizing on a hot bat, this is how he finished July, guys. 338, 6 home runs, 24 runs batted in, and the average at least has carried over into August. 321. I want the bat. I want the skills behind the plate. I want it at all. Yeah, it is a want. I want it.
Yeah, also, real quick, Alex, this is the thing I mentioned with Baez, and I've brought up what they did with Wynn in 2023. Even if it's not even a month, right? Let's just call it 2 weeks, week and a half, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. That's valuable experience for a kid to have, to see how his skill set translates to the big league level, both at the plate, for him to kind of go through especially as a catcher, to go through the works with Dusty Blake and the catching group behind the scenes on prepping for a game at the major league level. That's just valuable going into an offseason. And since he's appears to arguably be maybe one of their top prospects in the system outside of Reinel Rodriguez from position player group, and depending on who you talk to, behind Joshua Baez. I kind of want to get him some experience here at the big league level rather than saying, all right, let's wait till 2027 in a year in which, quick reminder, he's on the 40-man. If there's a lockout, he cannot go down to the minor leagues and play.
Yeah.
He will just be stalled in terms of having to wait until the lockout ends.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm not going to be upset. Frankly, I'd like to see Leo Bernal. I'm just not adamant as much as I am about Joshua Baez coming up and getting those reps. And especially right now, like if they did this in September when the rosters expand and he's the guy that they brought up, I'm intrigued by it. But it's one of those things that I look at and I just assume he's in their conversation for next year, kind of replacing Pedro Pages, I would assume. Now, maybe that changes and Jimmy Crooks is the guy that they view as maybe trade bait regardless. I just wonder if they're going to view it with Jimmy Crooks the same way they're viewing it with Matthew Liberatore, to where it's like, look, we know what he is, or we think we know what he is, but let's play this thing out. Because Bernal is having a lot of success. He was just co-player of the month in AAA.
Yeah.
So they know he's having success, and I think he's already fallen under the camp of what more does he have to prove in AAA. I think this is more about what Jimmy Crooks has to prove and work on at the major league level to see if there's something there than them saying, let's get Bernal up here. If they do this and just say, look, Pages is never playing, we're going to bring Bernal up and he gets one start a week and he can come off the bench every once in a while, because I think having that switch hitter would be very beneficial for the Cardinals to just have coming off of the bench if that pops there. And he doesn't strike out as much as Jimmy Crooks, which if you're making contact, that's impactful for this team. I also, though, just think as much as I believe and what you said is true, that the Cardinals look at this as we know what Crooks is. We know what Libby is. But they're going to push through just till the end of the season, so they are damn sure they know what it is, so that next year in training camp, at spring training, they don't have questions surrounding that guy.
Yeah, and the tough part for them, like you mentioned, kind of Pages, like if you call it Bernal, it's almost the same as, well, it's a little different because it's a catcher, but it's kind of like Baez. You have to play him, right? Like Bernal's not the prospect that you call up here and say, go to that Pages role.
Correct.
We'll see you once a week.
Yeah, we can't play you once a week as a catcher, especially if you think he's better defensively than Crooks and Herrera.
And you don't want to limit him to, well, you're only going to start, because like for Pages, it's basically, if it's not a day that is a Herrera assigned day for catching, and it's a lefty on the mound, then we see Pages.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, I'd have to go back and look, I don't think they've started Crooks against a left-hander when it's a day when it's not Herrera's day to catch.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that's why you only see Pages every like once in a blue moon. And you can't really put Bernal into that role. He's up here. He probably has to take the role of Jimmy Crooks, or if you're going to bring him up for Pages, then you're almost probably having to
push Crooks into the Pages role,
or put Herrera just to the DH role for the rest of the year. You know, and I don't think they want to do that yet. And that's where it just gets so complicated to find the playing time with him. I'm with you. I don't think it is a need, but I do think it would be beneficial for him to come up here for a month, 2 weeks, just to experience it and then know, okay, here's how Major League Pitching attacks me from a hitter's perspective. Here's what I need to work on in the offseason. I think that is extremely valuable, and the one guy I think that you can point to for that on the Cardinals was Mason Wynn when they did it. You know, he said going into that offseason in 24, I think it was, because he came up in 23, he said, you know, there was quotes of him saying, yeah, that was extremely beneficial to see. Major League Pitching is that bleeping good. And here's the things that I have to work on. And the next year, guess what? He was above league average offensively.
I'm with you there. Like, it's why I wonder if you see him with the last couple of weeks to go in the regular season, to where it's just bring him up, not really worried about the playing time because he's had plenty of innings behind the plate with AAA. It's just be around the guys to see what the prep looks like. But I also think that's tied into the playoff push. Because if you're not bringing him up to just sit on the bench, you're bringing him up so that he could get some reps and feel what it looks like. But if you're in a playoff push, I just don't think they're going to push that guy into that role, because there's the consistency with the pitching staff. There's just the preparation that the pitchers feel comfortable with. I think if this team's in the playoff push down the stretch, you won't see Bernal. If they fall out of it, maybe you see him those last couple of weeks to where you can pluck him in and take Herrera off of his feet for those catching days. I don't know. I'll be fascinated with it.
You see Baez if they're in the playoff race?
Yeah, I do.
He's the one that it doesn't matter, you think?
That's the one where I feel confident in saying, like, that's the one I think the Cardinals look at and believe it's mandatory to see him at some point, especially if they're in a playoff race. maybe you lighten the load a little bit with him, but I think you want to see how he handles that type of pressure in this position. So he's the one that I think you'll get to see no matter what before the end of the season. The question will be when, not if. Now, I did promise a Mo nugget, and I don't think people are going to be too happy with John Mozeliak after this upcoming offseason.
Just be a day that ends in Y.
That's very true. So Katie Woo, the GOAT Katie Woo, doing some former Cardinal reporting on the Angels. John Mozeliak is starting a formal interview process to begin compiling names for the general manager position of the Angels. He believes he can fix the Angels. He's looking for a GM. While he did not disclose candidates, one person widely believed to be of interest is Cardinal scouting director Randy Flores, per multiple league sources, not authorized to speak candidly given the sensitivity of the information. This isn't anything new. It would make a ton of sense if he looked at Randy Flores and says, that's the guy I'm targeting, because he's got the draft history. And if you're the Angels, you're going to be bad for a while and you need to start targeting some good players in the draft. I'm curious if Cardinals fans are frustrated with that, if he does pluck Randy Flores away, because there's some criticism of Randy Flores in terms of some draft selections of years past. But these last few seasons, it feels like it's just been glowing reviews of what Randy Flores and his team has done. I have to imagine also, T-Bone, that if they pluck Randy Flores away, I don't know how people are going to feel insecure about the Cardinals, because Chaim Bloom and his staff are the ones that are going to be directing that search for the next scouting director.
Yeah, it would be the first real test for Chaim in terms of the next steps in this build is, of course, the draft. You mentioned it. The draft was highly regarded for what the Cardinals did this past year. A lot of people loved their draft. Randy Flores, though he's had some misses, has done a pretty good job in drafting for the Cardinals. I mean, you look at it, Michael McGreevy, first-round pick, guy that's impacting the Cardinals. Kyle Leahy was I can't remember exactly, 5th or 6th-round pick. I think he was a later draft pick from one of those draft classes in 2018. Brendan Donovan, you look at the 2020 draft class, Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn. What draft was Kyle Leahy, Bradford?
17th round,
That's
believe it or not.
I remember it was a deeper pick. I think Donovan was the same year that they drafted him, and he was a later draft pick as well.
19th round, I think.
They did. I mean, he's done a very good job, and this would be a huge loss for the Cardinals. And then it'd be interesting to see what Chaim does, and who he would decide to try and target to replace him. But he makes a ton of sense for the Angels. Got the connection with Mo. If the Angels are going to do anything right, it would be to hire Randy Flores and start drafting and going through the rebuilding process.
Yeah, you have to, you got to start from the bottom. That's a true rebuild that's going to take years. So you got to get your scouting director right. Randy Flores would be the obvious pick for John Mozeliak. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes. It's a Friday, which means you can ask us anything on the Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. Also the Graveyard Chat over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. But coming up next, some NFL quick hitters, including a preseason game that took place last night, and a couple of teams view themselves as contenders heading into this upcoming season. What's going to really hold them back? We'll touch on those in the quick hitters next here on 101 ESPN.
Didn't think we'd talk about that today.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Sunday night, Astros and Mariners. Pregame at 5:30. First pitch at 6:20. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Critical road trip awaits Redbirds. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns. This Sports Center update is driven by Universal Windows Direct. The Cardinals' 11-game odyssey away from Busch Stadium begins today at Wrigley Field. St. Louis, Chicago. First pitch set for 1:20 p.m. Lefty Matthew Liberatore facing right-hander Clay Holmes. Last night, Philadelphia bludgeoned Minnesota in Iowa 7-1, taking sole possession of NL wildcard spot number 3. NFL preseason, Arizona beat Las Vegas 27-14, spoiling Fernando Mendoza's debut. It was Pittsburgh 28, Green Bay 9, while Cincinnati held off Detroit 16-14. Tomorrow evening, 101 ESPN presents Eagles-Ravens. Baltimore head coach Jesse Minter confirming that Lamar Jackson will sit out said affair. Your SportsCenter update comes from Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So maybe I'm in the minority here. Maybe I'm in the majority here. How much preseason football did you guys watch last night?
Not a lot.
You have a lot of games? Okay, we'll see. This is where I'm in the minority. I didn't watch any.
Sean McVay's kind of, I don't want to say ruined the preseason for me, because can he really ruin the preseason? But when McVay basically says, yeah, I'm not playing any of the first stringers at all, not even a snap in the preseason, and even some of his second stringers, he's like, yeah, they're not touching the field either. Kind of lose some of the luster for it.
I turned on the Hall of Fame game, what was that, last week? And it was just because I needed a football fix. And then I was like, okay, that's enough. That was good for me. My
football fix now is playing the college football video game.
Mine's playing Madden's of last year. But anyway, I didn't watch preseason because Colton Patriots finished 13-13. Oh, I would feel miserable if I spent my entire night watching a preseason game that ended in a tie.
It's an MLB All-Star game from 10 years ago.
With that being said, there was a couple of notable appearances in that game. And most notably was this past draft's first overall pick, Fernando Mendoza, who got the start made the appearance for the Raiders. He went 10 for 16 last night, 97 yards and 1 touchdown in a 27-14 loss against the Arizona Cardinals. It's going to be complete. It's going to be talked about going through preseason and into the opening of the season. But Fernando Mendoza looked fine last night, at least off of the highlights that I saw. To me, it's still dumb of the idea of just not starting him and letting Kirk Cousins get the start.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like you drafted the guy, and I know this is like the trend lately to where you want to slow play it and let him watch a little bit before you put him into the fire, but man, they've got weapons on that team. I feel like I'd want Fernando Mendoza to just kind of join that group and go right into it. I don't know what you're benefiting from with Kirk Cousins.
How's your offensive line, though? Would you rather not? You're paying Kirk Cousins. Thank you very much. That's the point. At the beginning of the season, you allow Kirk Cousins to absorb the beatings and the damage because he's at least going to be functional to at the position.
Kirk Bradford?
You know what? After 6 games, doesn't matter. That's why you begin the season with him, though.
How long does it take to fix an offensive line, though? A couple years?
Well, it's a sea change as far as the new regime in Vegas, period. But look, you don't have I like some of the skill players, okay? I really do. I think you'll see more this year from Ashton Ginty. I think, health permitting, you're going to get a ton from Brock Bowers. But if you're talking about the way in which your team is actually formed and those guys up front in the proverbial trenches, you have miles to go. So why would you have Fernando Mendoza, for all the pomp and circumstance and the skills and the ability, he's nitpicking things now as well. Let him take his time because this is your guy. This is the face of your franchise for, you would hope, the next decade plus. Do you want to throw him to the Wolves right away in that division, no less? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I'd put him in. And I'd start him right away. I have nothing to learn with Kirk Cousins. He might get killed in the first start. And then it's like,
that's okay. Bradford said he's not the face of the franchise.
No, what I'm saying is he might go down in the first set of plays, and then we're going straight to Fernando Mendoza.
Did you see that opening drive last night? He had it, Alex. He orchestrated that attack.
You liked that. We liked it.
I actually agree with Bradford here. I would probably start Kirk Cousins to start the year. I think we've seen over time that it's better for these quarterbacks to kind of sit on the sidelines and watch over time and just see how defenses play, kind of get adjusted to the speed of the game from the sidelines, and still being integrated in the practices and all that, of course. But, like, I think, like, Patrick Mahomes did that for an entire year behind Alex Smith. I know the Chargers tried that with Justin Herbert until Tyrod Taylor's lung got poked by the training staff. So I have no issue with trying to do that. And I think, I want to say Tennessee did that last year?
I thought Tennessee put Cam Ward right into it.
Maybe he did. I thought somebody did it last year. I can't remember off the top of my head. But
it was McCarthy, wasn't it? With the Vikings?
But he was hurt, I think. I think
was
his was injured. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, is he was hurt.
That went well.
I just prefer to have your rookie quarterback sit on the sidelines a little bit and just get adjusted to it. I have no problem if they decide to start Kirk. You know, it may only be for 6 games, as Bradford laid out. I'm not saying this has to be a full year thing, but I would start Kirk, let Fernando Mendoza just kind of season on the sideline.
And frankly, if you're the Raiders, it makes a lot of sense to try and go get that really good pick to fix your offensive line and just, tank for as long as possible with Kirk Cousins and let Mendoza run. On the flip side of that, another top draft pick from this last year's draft was going on the other side, Jeremiah Love. Pretty impressive in his debut for a team that I didn't think he was going to have a lot of success with because that offensive line is not good, nor is the quarterback. Again, preseason, going up against another preseason team, but 11 carries for 58 yards in his NFL debut for preseason. I'm fascinated to see where he lands this season in terms of running backs and rookie of the year. My guess is this guy's going to win it, especially if Mendoza's not starting right away. But Jeremiah Love, the problem is, of course, the depth at running back and how they utilize those guys, and does he get the bulk of work? But I feel like Love might be a little bit better than what Ashton Genty was with the Raiders last year.
I'm with you there. He looked better than Genty did early on. I don't remember Genty making headlines.
I didn't either.
In training camp last year. Now, maybe that was because he just didn't play much. I can't remember exactly. But he looked really good. And I know he hurt his ankle, so we'll see kind of how that impacts him moving forward. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned kind of the thing that is kind of the bugaboo for me in terms of like, okay, do I want to draft this guy in fantasy football this year, especially where he's going? Because depending on where you look, he's kind of top 30 right now. So he's like round 3, round 4, somewhere in that range. If he drops to round 4, maybe even into round 5, I'd go pick him up. I'm just a little worried because there's so many running backs there in Arizona. I think we've talked about this in the past. That's the only hesitation I have of not taking him in fantasy. Mm-hmm. I just don't know how many carries he's going to get. But if he continues to be like that, and if he continues to play like that, though, that number is going to go skyrocketing.
Ashton Genty in his first preseason last year, you know what he finished with?
0 yards,
3 carries, and was a -1.
There you go.
So they barely played him.
Yeah. Guys, personally, I am less worried about the quantity of other backs in that room, respectively, to Tyler Algier, the longtime veteran stalwart in James Conner, even to Trey Benson. Then once again, broken record or not, I'm going back to the offensive line because a la Ashton Genty last year with the Raiders, when you don't have that ability to push the line and be able to create more space and more holes, I really picture Arizona having much the same problem, whether it's Brissett at quarterback, whether Beck eventually, health permitting, gets some reps as well. I don't think that this group, as currently constituted, and Tanner, you know, in the NFC West, you have to be able to take care of business and blow the opposing D-line off of the ball. Arizona will do that with no kind of regularity, and as a result, Love and everybody else part of that core is going to suffer.
One more quarterback we could talk from preseason, and only because his coach just came on the air with Pat McAfee and had a real bold comment. Drew Aller, future quarterback of the Steelers, last night, he went 10 for 13, 153 yards, and threw 2 touchdowns. That's pretty damn good, right?
Yeah.
Now we're talking about Kirk Cousins. Drew Aller just outthrew him.
I'm not impressed.
This was Coach McCarthy on the Pat McAfee show. Quote, when we drafted Drew, we felt like we were getting a first-round pick. All of that is holding true. All right. It's knocking off Aaron Rodgers in week 1, right, boys?
Yeah, I may need to calm down, Mike.
I have a lot of thoughts.
Boy, off of a preseason game. Get that hype started.
Yeah, and Drew Aller was a total dud last year at Penn State. Now, I know he got hurt, but...
And I'm sorry, in the year prior, how did that go down against Notre Dame? How about fitting those balls into windows? And then, when you didn't have any sort of a threat on which to rely there in Happy Valley, how did he go? I thought there
He also didn't see the field until the third quarter. So it's like, come on, man. You saw the, 4th string of the defense that you were going up against?
Did you not have similarly glowing remarks about Will Howard, a national champion, a year ago? He's still on that roster, is he not?
Yeah, I saw
Correct me
him
if
play
I'm
last
wrong.
night. Yeah.
Right, dude. Who started the preseason game for him? Because did Howard start or was he the second one? Wasn't it
Might have
Daxton
been
Rudolph that got start?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Mason Rudolph.
Or Mason Rudolph, not Daxton.
Now
Rudolph.
there's a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, yikes. Well, all in all, preseason's off and running, and I think I saw that Deshaun Watson is supposed to get the start
by
for
the way,
the Broncos on Friday.
Browns.
Or Browns, yes, Browns, not Broncos.
Talk about a fall from grace. I mean,
that quarterback battle.
What do you mean he's long for Cleveland? The family loves the city. He wants to keep it
Shador
going.
was a Pro Bowler, so there's some intense battles there going on.
I said this, I think, earlier this week. The fact that I'm seeing reports that Dylan Gabriel is arguably the best quarterback in that quarterback
Tells you
battle.
everything you need to know.
It tells me they might win a game this
Tanner,
year.
do you almost feel sorry for your old boy Jared Verse being there in the factory of sadness?
No, because I got Myles Garrett out of it. You know what?
Yeah.
Empathy.
Let him go win the Super Bowl.
And Verse kind of brought that upon himself.
Oh.
Verse was a guy that was more of an analytics darling, if you can call him that. Because if you look at Jared Verse's numbers, he didn't have the sack quantity, but you'd look at every other metric and it was like pressure rate through the roof. He's like always there, but he's a half step slow.
Okay.
And the Rams said, boy, doesn't that remind you of Jared Goff? Well, he's good at times. How about we trade him and go get a better piece? And that's exactly what they did.
Sounds about right. So those are your NFL quick hitters. Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15 minutes, we'll catch up with our guy Mike McKenna, our weekly hit with Macadoodle Mike. But coming up next, you ask us anything. 314-399-9646. We'll answer them next here on 101 ESPN.
Give us your opinion on the Air Comfort Service heating, cooling, and insulation text line at 314-399-9646 on 101 ESPN.
Ouch! Checked from behind. Man, that's gotta hurt.
I'd hire Morgan & Morgan if I were them.
What?
Yeah, Dan, America's largest injury law firm. They serve up justice, ice, cold, law. Know what I mean?
I guess.
Their gloves come off when they fight for you.
Okay.
I'm talking a settlement slap shot.
Shouldn't we be talking about the game?
Yeah, Dan, Morgan & Morgan.
Proud partner of the St. Louis Blues. Injured? Dial Pound Law or visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
ESPN has your shot to score a pair of passes to Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Keep summer going with a summer wind down culinary fest at Holiday World and Splash and Safari now through September 13th. Enjoy incredible food, local wines, and all your favorite rides and slides. Find your chance to win a pair of free passes right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app. Savor the season and get tickets at holidayworld.com. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions. We may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646. That is our Air Comfort Service text line, YouTube channel over at 101 ESPN STL. Our studio cams brought to you by the Air Alliance team. You send us a question and we'll answer it. Ask us anything. It's a special one that we do on Friday. We'll start with this. Guys, you talked earlier of John Mozeliak plucking Flores from the Cardinals. Why wouldn't the Cardinals just hire Flores as their general manager? Isn't that Serfolio's role?
He's assistant general manager. I don't think, I'd have to double check this. I don't think they have a general manager right now.
My guess is, though, Serfolio at some point is going to become a GM because you don't want to lose that guy.
Yeah, it just comes down to, to that point, do they feel like they can't afford to lose him?
Right.
Would be the point there. And like you said, if Surf is one of those guys that they say, hey, we don't want to lose Serfolio, so we're going to keep that job open. And I think Himes talked about hiring someone for that role. It just comes down to that, because once you give him that title, then he can't be hired as basically a sideways move, right? Yeah. You have to be getting a promotion to be able to interview for other jobs.
What I'm about to say is no disrespect to Randy Flores at all, because I think he's been incredible at what he has done throughout his tenure with the Cardinals. But don't you trust Heim and Rob Serfolio of finding somebody in charge of scouting for the draft, for their background in terms of prospects and their ability to identify talent? That's an area that I feel like I would trust them most in terms of going out there and finding somebody in charge of that. Now, again, I could be completely off on that, and Flores could be one of the best, and that's the guy you want to keep around. But it's just one of those things that I will trust Himes' knowledge in that aspect of Major League Baseball to go out there and find the guy if they don't think Flores. If they think Flores is that valuable, yeah, I think they'll find a way to keep him on the roster, but sometimes it just works out better. Flores is a West Coast guy. It might make a lot of sense for him and his family to go that direction if Mo comes calling.
Yeah, and he may even say, like, hey, I want to go out to the West Coast, right? Like you said. In terms of trusting Heim on it, I mean, I guess I'll take his word on what they decide to do. I mean, he would know more of those people connected than we would, so yeah. I would trust him on the hire. I do think Flores would be a huge loss for the Cardinals, as I mentioned earlier, because I do think he has done a good job. I don't know if I'd call it a great job, but he has done a good job for the Cardinals in drafting and then getting those guys into the pipeline. From the 314, guys, if Pavel Buchnevich has a rebound season playing exclusively on the right wing, do you still try to move him, or do you pivot to make a prospect like Carbonneau available in the right move? Well, I don't make Carbonneau available in a move no matter what Pavel Buchnevich does. I just don't know how many people are going to be chasing after Pavel Buchnevich, even if he has a rebound season. I think for what the cap looks like and where it's going and for how much money he makes, it feels a lot now. In 2 years, I don't know if it's going to feel a lot compared to what other people are making. And look, if this is a guy that gets you 60 points in a season, can score 25 goals for you, I'm okay with that being on my third line. If he's excellent on the penalty kill, he's excellent defensively and can give me 50 to 60 points, that's a third liner. And in about 2 years, third liners are going to be making $6 to $8 million. So, no, if he has a bounce back here, I'm not going to actively look to move him. I might just say, cool, that's our third line moving forward. Carbonneau's got a spot on this team. I think it's just a matter of letting everything play itself out and find out whose role is where. Yeah, see, I would probably try and move him because I would bet that he doesn't have that as a sustainable model moving forward. If he bounces back as a 60-point guy, I would take calls on him. Now, you're right. I don't know how many teams are actively looking to move him, but there might be a team that's at the floor that may be saying, man, we could really use a winger. Can you trade him there? You know, because I think at this point, Booch is like a 45-point guy. 45 to 50 points in his career, and he's a little bit overpaid, and that's why we talked about, you know, is he a buyout candidate at some point for the Blues? And I don't know if that's going to be the case because of the way the cap's going, but if he had a bounce back year, I would look to try and move him just because I don't trust that he's going to be able to sustain that.
Yeah, especially with the age of 31, if you're able to have that bounce back year, to try to parlay that, to expect that to continue moving forward with the momentum. That's a big ask.
Yeah, it wouldn't. I mean, it would not surprise me one bit if somebody came calling and they said, yeah, we want to get rid of the $8 million and put a Bergeron in that spot on the third line. They definitely would go for it. I'll be fascinated to see what a season looks like, because if it's the bounce back, how much do they say, well, we finally got it going now because we have the center depth and maybe it's going to work. From Cottleville Comb Over, would a catcher split of Crooks, Bernal, Herrera, a 2-2-1 throughout a week work for the team? Herrera at first base, first left-handed pitching, and DH the other games makes sense for next year. Feels like everyone would get their ABs with that split.
Yeah, me and BK kind of talked about this yesterday on the Red Bird Report. I just think that it sounds easier in concept than it is to execute. To me, it almost reminds me of, remember, what was it, 23, where they're like, hey, we have 5 outfielders, and we're going to go through this whole rotation thing, and everybody's going to get enough at-bats, and then they left the year going, yeah, we're not going to do that again. It kind of feels that way to me with that. It almost feels like it's just too much. I don't know that you can have 3 catchers that you want to play. I think the way they've done it this year, where you've got 2, 3, depending on how you want to view Pages, like, I think they got to get away from that. I would just go with 2 and just stick with that moving forward.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at, too. You move on from that and you just stick with 2 on that front. But, I mean, the creativity I would not put away from the Cardinals. They have shown the ability to do that in the past. Let's get to a couple more from the 636. If you could have the 90th percentile outcome of one player on the roster outside of the core 4, who would it be? Mine's Mason Wynn.
That's a great question.
I like that, Alex.
Yeah, mine's Mason Wynn. I mean, I got elite defense, and if you can give me the 90th percentile, maybe he gets to be that 20 to 25 home run guy we've talked about, has a little bit more pop in terms of doubles. I would take Mason Wynn any day of the week, because that would make it a core 5.
Yeah. Boy, that is a very good question. I think I'm with you on the active roster. I think my answer would be Mason Wynn. Because 90th percentile, he's probably like what he was in 2023. Close to it. I mean, he was, a 5-win player that year, I think. Great defensively, was like 4 or 5% above league average. It's kind of what I thought he was going to be, right? And I think he had like 15 home runs. So I think that would be my answer. If you were looking like down to the guys in the minor leagues, for example, of like when they get up here and they hit their 90th percentile outcome, I think I would answer probably Doyle, because his 90th percentile outcome would be like a number one, if not a number 1, number 2, probably. Yeah. So I think he'd probably be my answer for that, because like you don't necessarily need Baez to hit that 90th percentile outcome and become like one of the best power hitters in baseball. It'd be a nice add, but with your core 4 already, you've got decent pop in Burley and Walker, so that's not a need. They need somebody at the front end of that rotation for when they get to their winning window. So for down in the minors, Doyle would probably be my answer.
It's a good one. Bradford, did you have one?
I just wanted to echo your sentiments about Wynn, because if you're talking about blending what we already know to be elite defense, elite glove with additional thump too. I think that's the biggest criticism so many people have, and justifiably so. You can get by with that combination, an okay 240, 250-ish average, but the absence of the power now, that has completely disappeared. 24, Tanner, as you stated, that year in which he finished as a 5-WAR player, 15 home runs. It's completely evaporated. You went from 9 down to 4 this year, and you don't see a reversal happening.
If I went different from Wynn, because I think we all agree on him, Church would be interesting to me, 90th percentile. He's kind of piqued my interest. I've thrown this comp out there before.
Power, really good defense, makes connection, gets on base,
good
speed.
defense. You know who he kind of reminds me of, because he chases so much and swings so much. I don't know if he's ever going to be an on-base guy and a high average guy. Could he be like Dalton Varsho? Varsho's not a big on-base guy, but he's got decent pop, always about like 5 to 10% above league average, won a Gold Glove either last year or 2 years ago with Toronto. Pretty solid left-handed center fielder for that organization. Like, I wonder if that would be his 90th percentile outcome, somewhere close to that.
I like that one. Appreciate all the texts for Ask Us Anything. With Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get back into the Cardinals. How does their core 4 stack up with the rest of the National League moving forward? In 30, we'll catch up with Brad Thompson. But coming up next, our goalie guru, the NHL former goaltender, and now in charge of Macadoodles, Mike McKenna, joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
WXOS, WXOS HD1E St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan. Over 1,000 vehicles in one location. Getting you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
How do you like me now? Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darden Prairie.
Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. BK off today, spending some time with the kids and the family. He'll be back with us on Monday, but he misses out on one of the best days because we get to catch up with the former NHL goaltender, Mike McKenna, who is finally off of the lakes, I would imagine, and back in St. Louis to enjoy this wonderful humidity. Mike, how are you today, buddy?
It's awesome chewing air, isn't it?
It's awesome walking outside and your shirt already sticking to you less than 2 minutes outside.
It's anti-cotton weather out there, man. This is like mandatory Band-Aids on the chest stuff out there. It's thick, man. Thick with 3 C's.
This is why I was always a hockey guy growing up, because I didn't like going outside in this type of weather. It was in the wintertime when you could be somewhere cool and dress appropriately.
Yeah, I agree. But you know what? The good deal is you can always come to Macadoodles and find things to cool you down in the summertime, right, guys? You know
That's
what I'm
right.
about.
Oh, believe me, you know what I'm talking about, especially when you get those last couple of rounds of golf in before the fall kicks in. Got to take care of that. So, Mike, before we get into Macadoodles, talk a little hockey with you here, because we just had this text line, our text come in on our text line last segment, asking about Pavel Buchnevich, that if he has a bounce-back year, would you look to move him to open up space and get off of that money? I don't want to ask you so much about moving him, but more on the bounce back side of things, because they obviously looked at it and said, we think Jordan Kyrou probably what he is. A fresh start is there. I don't know the appetite for a guy like Pavel Buchnevich on the market, but he did finish with 20 goals. He finished with fewer than 50 points. He was fine defensively for them. What does a bounce back year look like for a Pavel Buchnevich, Mike?
You need the point production, but you also just need consistency. He really should be a 60-point-plus player in the NHL, and at his contract level, I think that realistically is what you're looking for. If you're getting paid $8 million, you need to be potting 25 goals and putting 70 points up, 65 to 70 points. That's about the going rate on it. So the hard part that's been that way with Pavel is that he was gone for the first half of last season, and he came back around. He started to play better hockey. I do think part of that was the experimentation of him at the center ice position. There really wasn't a lot of clarity to his game on where he kind of fit in and belonged. And I think that was symptomatic of the Blues in general, that you had a lot of moving parts last year trying to figure it out amongst the injuries, lineup changes, all that. If you can just stick Pavel on the wing and tell him to go fly up and down and do his job, and yeah, if he can bury, because that was a big problem last year, it just wasn't going in for him, I think you get your money's worth out of him. But, at $8 million, you expect him to be a top 2 line player. You expect 65 to 70 points and 25 goals. Is it realistic? I do think it is. But he's got to settle into a role right away. Jim Montgomery has to know where to utilize him from the start, be consistent with it, because that seems to help Pavel.
Mike, how beneficial do you think it is? Like, as you say that, I'm kind of thinking to myself, there's not a lot of, I don't know if it's flexibility is the right word, but there's not a lot of, up in the air. You have a really good idea as to where everybody's going to be coming into training camp outside of a battle on, that third-line right wing spot. How beneficial is it for, Buchnevich, Snuggerud, knowing he's going to be with Thomas and Holloway, going into camp knowing kind of where things are settled right now?
I think that this year, for the first time in a while, we do, Tanner, I think we have some clarity going into the season. It looks pretty... It looks pretty clean on paper where everybody slots in for the Blues. I don't know if you guys disagree with that, but I think that's my take, is this team, for the most part, is pretty built. And we know there's not going to be any big trades now before the season. I'd be shocked if there was. It's the old racing adage, you got to run what you brung. That's kind of what we're looking at here. I tell you what, though, what I like about it is that if we really are looking at Connor McMichael playing with Buchnevich, let's say Mason McTavish ends up in the middle ice between those two. There's pretty good speed on both wings there. And I do feel like there's been times where Pavel's speed maybe wasn't always paired up with what he needed to at times, that he plays the game very north-south when he's at his best. And he just needs people to kind of keep him in his lane and get him the puck doing that. And so McTavish is a pretty good puck mover. He's not the fastest guy on the planet, but McMichael can fly. So I just think it helps a lot in that way. And then if you decide to move Pavel to the left side, it's really not a problem to move up a Neighbors on the right side or McMichael to the right. Like there are some options there. Dvorsky's still trying to find where he may fit in, but I just think that clarity for Buch especially is going to help, and especially if he's with McMichael.
We're talking with Mike McKenna of Macadoodles here on the Callier and Thompson hotline. Mike, I think a lot of Blues fans are understanding if they go down this path, but the excitement is there to see guys like Adam Jiricek or Justin Carbonneau. You spent plenty of time in the American Hockey League. You saw rookies and veterans go through the ringer in terms of playing in the AHL. What's going to be the benefit if those guys start in the minors this upcoming season, and let's say they don't see the NHL until December or January?
Well, Carbonneau's the real wild card for me. He's 19 years old. He's going to be 19 at the start of camp. Obviously a high draft pick going in the top 20. There's expectations for you to be an impact player at the NHL level. He does have the points to go along with it. I mean, this is a 50-goal scorer in the Quebec League, which they don't like to play defense there. They never have. Kind of a French thing, I guess. I don't know. But,
we saw that with Bolduc, too.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, though, for Bolduc, he ended up in a pretty good place.
Yeah.
So good for him. But I like that Carbonneau finished the year really strong. He had a great playoff in the Quebec League. Again, we're talking major juniors. So these kids are all 16 to 20 years old. He was really strong in the playoffs. From everybody I've talked to, his numbers back it up. I think there's an outside chance that Justin Carbonneau makes the roster and plays his first several games and maybe gets sent with an injury. You'll see. But he won't be a full-time guy, if you ask me. And the benefit of what you get is you learn how to play hockey. And it's funny because we're doing youth evaluations right now, and I constantly look at kids and I see, wow, ton of skill. Can he play hockey? And that's not meant to be, terrible on somebody or really down. It's just every level you go up, whether you're going from squirt hockey to Pee-wee or Pee-wee to Bantam, whether you're going from junior to college or college to pro or American League to the NHL, that game is faster. It's incrementally faster, but it's more so faster in the mental space between the ears. Guys think the game so well. And you can come in at 20 and have the skill, but can you play the game, which means can you think the game? The American League gives a prospect a chance to figure it out before they show up in the NHL and they're overwhelmed by it. And you're definitely better to arrive in the NHL ready to play against men in pro hockey than you are coming in unprepared between the ears, getting buried, getting overwhelmed, and then all of a sudden your career stagnates. So I think the Blues have been a very good organization about not rushing players almost to a fault. Dallas is the same way. Detroit used to always be like that. It's better to be overripe than it is to be not ready, and you lose a career or you lose 3 years of development at it.
Well, Mike, you said there that you think there's maybe an outside shot that Carbonneau could make the roster out of training camp. I'm curious, as someone that's gone through training camp before, how much harder is it going to be for a prospect like a Carbonneau across the NHL that's maybe got an outside shot to make the roster now that we're seeing less preseason games this year?
Well, it really depends on the mindset of the player. And I know your question is a very good one because it leans into what the organization is seeing in a very limited time frame. And that's a stark reality. The team has to make a decision in, 3 or 4 looks in the preseason. In today's world, though, there's been so much scouting. There's been so much video. There's even a quick cameo at the American League for Carbonneau last year in playoffs. The team's going to know what they think a player is capable of, and sometimes that projection can help a kid make a team. But if a kid goes out and has a great camp, they make a real case for themselves. So from the team side, I think it's easier in today's game. From the player side, though, is the pressure real? Is it hard? It really depends on the mindset. Because a first-round pick, if they go in thinking they have to make the team, they have to make a difference, they can get over it on themselves, get over their skis quickly. You have to go out there and actually not care. Like, you have to care less. You have to approach it like you have nothing to lose, leave all the chips on the table. However it happens, it happens. Just work as hard as you can. And I've seen that go both directions. I think I've done that in both directions. I've gone way too hard in some camps before. I had some camps where I came in and I was just like, whatever, and it went great. I usually did better the less I cared, which just means playing free. It doesn't mean I didn't care. It meant that I needed to play free, trust myself, not be afraid to play the game. Play with confidence and enjoy it. That'll carry a player.
All right, Mike, before we let you go, always join us on behalf of Macadoodles. As you mentioned, it's still hot out there. Kids are back in school, but there's still a little bit of taste of summer left. So what can people get in for and maybe get pre-gaming for the fall season coming up?
I have really, really good pricing right now on our Sun Cruiser spirit-based cocktails. Those are all the iced teas and lemonades. You can get 8-packs in the store right now. We're under $17 on those. We got 12-packs that are running under sub-20 as well. Neutrals at $19.97. So, everything you take poolside, everything you take on the lake, we have the best selection you'll see in town, and it's all cold. It's all in our cooler doors. It's ready to go right in your cooler. You don't miss a second on it. We still have our buy one, get one for $1 going in our wine department. We just got a bunch of limited drops in today as well. So we dropped a new barrel pick. It's a 10-year Ruby Port finish. Delicious. $74.97 if you want to know. And a bunch of other allocated stuff from Buffalo Trace, Sazerac, including we even got some chartreuse, which we haven't had since we opened. And those monks don't make a lot of chartreuse. They do weird things. They produce liquor, and it only comes occasionally. We've got some. We got a pretty good handle on it. So come see us at Macadoodles. We'll be open until 9 o'clock tonight for all your needs. We're just north of the Page Extension out here at Bryan and Feisey Road. And tell you what, feeling charitable today, first person to walk through the door today and say the word shrubbery has the right to purchase a Jack Daniel's 10-year Tennessee whiskey.
Look at that. Shrubbery is your buzzword today out at Macadoodles. Mike, we always love the chats, man. We'll talk next Friday as we inch closer to preseason action. Enjoy the weekend, my friend, and stay in the air conditioning.
Well, I'm sure BK's and Joe doing that. So, yeah, thank you, guys. Everybody have a lovely weekend. Talk to you next time. All
right, see you, Mike. Yeah, I guarantee BK's not doing anything outside for the rest of this weekend. One guy that will be outside out at Wrigley is BT, Brad Thompson. Yeah, that poor guy. Maybe, though, Chicago's...
He burns easy. You better be careful.
Chicago's at least got a nice breeze up at Wrigley. We'll talk to BT coming up in about 15 minutes. But coming up next, how does the Cardinals' core four stack up with the rest of the National League moving forward? We'll discuss next here on 101 ESPN.
right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Cardinals TV analyst Brad Thompson is going to join us in 10 minutes here on BK and Ferrario. But before we get to that, we go back to the Cardinals as they get set for their series against the Cubbies up at Wrigley this afternoon. And this is something, T-Bone, that you and BK got into on the Redbird Report, kind of stumbled into the conversation. You know, the core four is back to popping off offensively. You've got Burleson, who is one of the best hitters right now in Major League Baseball since the trade deadline. You got Jordan Walker, who's starting to get back to that power. Weatherholt is doing his same stuff, as well as Ivan Herrera. That's a core four that when they're clicking like they have most of this season, I think all of us can dream on what that outlook is going to look like long term. All of them are fairly close in age, although Burleson's on the older side of it, if you want to call 27 years old, 28 years old older. But they're in the position to be around for a decent amount of time, depending on what the Cardinals want to do. When you look around the National League, and you look at a lot of the teams that are in the contending position that the Cardinals are fighting with or leading their divisions, how would you say that core four that the Cardinals have, Walker, Weatherholt, Herrera, and Burleson, stack up versus some of these other big four around the National League?
I think it stacks up as one of the best. I don't know that I would call it the best because, you know,
that's the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So nice try.
It was hard to pick four for their core four.
Yeah, they got like 8 that you could go with.
Yeah. Let me name their starting 9 as their core.
The older group, then the younger group, and a secondary younger group.
The only guy that doesn't fit in is Teoscar Hernandez.
Yeah. So, they're not better than that. And they'll just keep adding to that.
Whoever the best free agent will be next year will be their core. They have a pitching staff that could be the core four for most teams.
I do think it's up there, though, as one of the best in the National League. And I think the big reason for that is because all these guys are under the age of 30. You know, this is, we talked a little bit about this yesterday. You know, ESPN had that list in the top 50 players across baseball at this point in the season. And BK made a great point of, I mean, it was a reminder of it's a young man's game, right? I mean, a lot of those guys that were on that list were fairly young, including the 2 for the Cardinals. J.J. Weatherholt, 23 years old. Jordan Walker, 24. Herrera, part of the core four, 26. Burleson, that wily veteran, 27 years old.
I know.
He's not even 30
Crazy
yet.
that he's old.
I know. So you've got this core group of guys, and the 4 of them are all in their primes right now. And you've got them under cost certainty. They're cost controlled right now. J.J. Weatherholt's got his extension. We talked about I would pay Alec Burleson, give him a 5-year contract extension probably. And the reason that I bring that up is if you're talking about the core as it is right now, yeah, it's probably more middle of the pack in the National League. But when you're thinking longer picture here over the next 2 or 3 years, 2028, 2029, when they want to get back into that contending window, all those guys are outside of Burley are still going to be under the age of 30. And Burley will just be 30 if you're going 3 years out in advance. Mm-hmm. And I look across the league and I go, okay, Philadelphia, for example, we just saw them, right? We talked about how they're not that intimidating. Guys, Schwarber and Harper up there in age at this point, you know? Trey Turner doesn't look like he's aging very well. That looks like it's going to be a disaster of a contract.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't even tell you who their 4th member is of their core. I guess it's Bryson Stott. But
Marsh.
Or Marsh.
Either way, it's a stretch.
Well. Yeah, and they're not playing as well as, like, Ivan Herrera, who I would say is like number 4 as part of your core 4. You look at a team like the Cubs, they got PCA, they got Nico Horner. Those are really good pieces. The other part of their core is Swanson and Bregman. And those guys are getting older, and Bregman's just finally starting to turn it on. Cubs fans were upset with his production to start this season. You know, you look at Milwaukee. Milwaukee's got Jackson Churio. They've got Bryce Terang, which are good players to have. But you look at William Contreras, free agent 2027. You know, you don't know what he's going to be. You don't know if he's going to be a Brewer. You know, he might be part of the new Phillies core when they start to kind of pivot their way. So I think it's one of the top cores in baseball. It's not top in the National League because you're right. The Dodgers, you're not going to really beat them. I do think it's probably up there towards like 2nd or 3rd. I think it's probably a little bit behind Atlanta. But after that, I would put it right up there with Milwaukee's. I would put it up there with San Diego's because San Diego's getting older. I would put it up there with Arizona because Arizona is one that I think you're very comparable to. Gabriel Moreno, probably your Ivan Herrera. Ketel Marte, I think you kind of hope that's J.J. Weatherholt. J.J. Weatherholt becomes a doubles machine, kind of like Marte is. Corbin Carroll, it's different style, but that's your Jordan Walker, hopefully. You know, and I think Burley's better than Perdomo as a bat. So I would probably take them as a top 3 core in the National League over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think we can all put Dodgers at number 1. I'm just kind of going through these right now and kind of crossing them off in terms of comparison. Like, I think the Cardinals are better than the Mets. I think the Cardinals will be better than the Phillies as they continue to age. I think the Cardinals, if you're going quantity over quality, are going to be better than the Cubs because of PCA. Milwaukee's just so hard to determine because they do it in a different way. Like, their numbers aren't going to beat what the Cardinals guys will, but they're going to find ways to win because they do it in a style that always seems to win for them, if that makes sense.
And the thing with Milwaukee is, like, you'll be like, oh, this will be the year they're bad, and then ta-da, here's some guy you've never heard of that's a 5-win player.
And they'll continue to churn those guys out. And the thing about this, too, is, like, I think the core 4, when you're going off of bats, that's a category that we're talking about. If you expand it to core 4, including pitchers, they've got Mizorowski, which it's going to outduel whatever you do, and it plays into their identity.
If we're talking the pitching group, you're behind a lot of these teams.
Yeah.
But position player alone, though, that's what I focused on as the core.
I think you're better than San Diego, and I think you're better than Arizona. So I think you're right, T-Bone. Like, to me, I would have the Dodgers, I would have Atlanta, and I think I'd have the Cardinals in the same spot as Milwaukee. And it's just because Milwaukee does it to a style that always wins baseball games. But if the Cardinals can find a way to match their defense with the offensive output that those guys have, that's where you really get into that, okay, well, they're figuring out the style that they need to play to win. Here's the other interesting factor to it. I know we're saying core 4, but expand it a little bit more, because if we believe Reynel Rodriguez is going to come up here and be the bat that you think he can become, and if Baez can match all of this hype, if you're expanding it to the best 5 players on these rosters, that's where I think the Cardinals may have the upper hand. Now, again, the Dodgers can go 9 deep and still beat you, but, like, if you're putting Atlanta and St. Louis in that conversation, the 5th guy on that list would be what, Austin Riley, who struggled?
Probably, yeah. Or Michael Harris. I think Harris has had a better year.
Yeah, so, like, but again, that's the predicting and the ifs, but that's the outlook of you're in right now with the Cardinals. So as this thing continues to expand, I think the quality is no doubt a top 5. You can argue a couple of teams in terms of their performance this season, but if we're looking into the future and they're a crystal ball here, I think you're talking about, no question, a top 5, maybe a top 3 core 4 if they can continue this stretch.
And maybe they don't become, like, members of that top 4. I'm going to quit saying core. YouTube chat's tired of hearing it.
Core 4, let's just keep staying.
We're going to get T-shirts.
Yeah, we are.
But, like, maybe they don't become, like, members of, like, maybe Baez doesn't become, like, a 20% above league average hitter consistently, right? Maybe you don't see Reynel Rodriguez become that. Maybe they settle in as, like, 5% above league average, kind of like Mason Wynn 2 years ago, where he was 4% above league average. Well, that's kind of what you're going to see from the Cubs this weekend. I mean, you look at that Cubs lineup. It's PCA, Seiya Suzuki have had really good years. Everybody else is just, like, slightly above league average, right? 10% above league average. Michael Busch, 10% above league average. Carson Kelly's kind of that. And that just means you're a deep lineup, and that's a really good thing to have. And that's kind of what I think the hope is for the Cardinals. Yeah, Rodriguez, you hope 90th percentile is that becomes like one of the best bats in baseball, since he's already one of the best bats in the minor leagues, according to publications. But even if he doesn't and he just settles in of a slightly above league average guy, all right, well, now, to your point, you add in 2 prospects. Now we're talking 6 guys above league average. Then you're hoping maybe Wynn can get back to being around that, like 7 guys deep that are above league average. That's how you end up with an offense like the Cubs. Yeah. And then the question becomes, do you develop the pitching? You know, that's the one reason I'm hesitant on the Cubbies. It's not anything to do with their offense. I think that offense is awesome. I think their pitching sucks. That will be what the big question will be for them. But, I mean, you look at Brian Walton and Kyle Reese, they put out their newest rankings for
I was going to say, pitching's not the problem here.
7 of the 10 prospects that they ranked in their top 10 were pitching prospects. Like, the pipeline is hopefully coming on that pitching side, and it's going to kind of come to a crescendo as you're starting to enter that winning window in 2028, and you've still got Burley, Herrera, Walker, Weatherholt, and any of those other pieces still in their prime.
Yeah, and remember, all 7 of those guys may not make the major league, so that becomes trade assets to go out there and add to the
let's do it this
piece that you got. Let's trade them right now. Should have did it at the trade deadline. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. When we come back, you've already got Jose Soriano. Kyle Leahy's doing that right now.
He ain't Soriano.
You got Soriano and Leahy. We'll come back with BT from Wrigley next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Liberatore leads Cards into hostile territory. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Roughly 40 minutes from now, the Cardinals open a crucial 3-game series against Craig Counsell's Cubs. Ali Marmol will start lefty Matthew Liberatore, while Clay Holmes makes his second appearance since mid-May. St. Louis 3 games out of that third National League wildcard spot. College football, Mizzou held its 10th fall camp practice this morning around Memorial Stadium. Tonight, NFL preseason action ramps up on 101 ESPN. Broncos-Falcons coverage getting underway at 5:30 post-Fast Lane. Elsewhere, Washington hosting Miami. Your Sports Center update was delivered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're talking everything Redbirds with Cardinals TV analyst Brad Thompson on 101 ESPN. BT is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, the ultimate home run for wings and wins.
Time to head right back to our Collier and Thompson hotline to welcome in our Cardinals TV analyst, Brad Thompson, who joins us every Friday here on BK and Ferrario. Minutes away from a massive series that begins against the Chicago Cubs up in Wrigley. BT, how are you, buddy?
I am great. The atmosphere here is electric. I'm actually in my kitchen. I'm flying up tonight, but I'm sure that it's gonna be electric over the weekend.
Well, at least it won't be humidity filled up in Chicago compared to where you're at right now.
Little stagnant here. No doubt about it, but that is fun. By the way, quick update.
Yes.
I had a blast at Holiday
Did you?
World.
Okay, how long was worth the wait, BT?
Okay, dude, so when we first got in, we went to the first roller coaster we did was one called Good Gravy.
Okay,
That's
ours was the Raven.
Midwestern roller coaster. Okay, the Raven was solid. Good Gravy took a while, okay? It was a good, 40-minute wait, which was too long for what it is, in my opinion. But then after that, I think that the water park opened up, so most of the people went to the water park. Like Thunderbird ended up being a 5-minute wait. We rode that 4 times. The Voyager, I think it was called.
Yeah.
That one, you can have your money on that one. And I'm a roller coaster guy. There were 3 times during that coaster where I was like, this could be over now. This is enough.
Adelaide, my 5-year-old looked at that one because we did the Raven. That's the one we waited 45 to 55 minutes for. We did that one, and that was our first taste of roller coaster, and she saw the one you're talking about, and she's like, Daddy, I don't want to do that one. I told her, baby, I don't want to do that one, so we'll skip it for today.
So my daughter did that when my daughter's 10, and she was sitting with me, and she was like, I don't know if it's this bar is tight enough. Can you hold me in? I'm like, yeah, I got you. So I'm one arm holding her. I get off this ride, and I've got my right arm is like T-Rex. I'm just stuck in that position. But it was a great time.
Good.
This is not a Holiday World endorsement, but it absolutely is. The place was fun.
I love it. I was thinking about you all weekend after we talked Friday. Hopefully it went well, and it sounds like it did. So that's all we need, BT. We need a successful trip to Holiday World, and you'll be ready. Did you get confused by the East Coast Central Time Zone switch on you in Indiana?
Nope. Was never an issue.
Okay.
Was
cool.
never everywhere we went was all in the Central. So maybe I didn't venture. Maybe that was a different part of the park. The time traveling part.
It could have been.
But yeah.
It could have been.
Not have the problem.
I'm also happily to admit that I'm an idiot, so I could have just jacked that one up myself here, BT. So let's.
I did put that into my thoughts as I was going through.
Understandably so. I'm happy to indulge those conversations. On the card side, BT, I don't think if you going into that series against the Phillies when they lost to Andrew Painter, thinking that they were going to win against Sanchez and Wheeler, I don't think anybody expected that. But because they pulled 2 of 3 out of that, you were right back into the thick of this thing, and that makes this series that much bigger. And BT, you know how much these rivalries have been enjoyed throughout years of Cardinals fandom. But when you put a playoff push in the midst of it, I think it just excels it to the next level.
It does, man, and it does so especially when you realize what kind of team you have going into it. This is a young team that really overall has not been through a playoff push, like games that really, really matter down the stretch. Now, we know, like the wild card, there's a lot of teams that are involved. There's a lot that could go right, that could go wrong. But as of right now, these are meaningful baseball games that this young team is playing. So you're going to get a lot out of them. You're going to learn a lot from them. And there's going to be some real excitement. And that's what this team continues to do, like, piggybacking your point of them coming back and being able to get to Sanchez, being able to get to Wheeler, two awesome pitching performances by Palante and Leahy, being able to go toe-to-toe with both of those guys. They continue to find ways to, for them, continue to battle and grow and get better. And for the fans, they're making it interesting and making it fun to whether you're watching on TV or go to the ballpark. So, man, I'm with you. It's going to be a fun weekend. Always is with the Cubs. They've played some really good baseball. The Cubs have, but the Cardinals have a great opportunity here.
BT, just to follow up on that, because you were going through those playoff pushes when you were a young player, when you were a rookie, because that was that era of the Cardinals every single year. When you talk about how meaningful it is for those guys, what's the biggest thing you take away when you're young, when you get a taste of that playoff push?
Yeah, it's so different, right? So, because for me, in 2005, I came on to such an incredibly veteran-laden team. Like, the nearest young guy to me was Yachty, who felt already established, even though he was only in, a year or two of being in the big leagues. But it was a team that expected to win. Remember, 2004, this was a group that went to the World Series and ended up falling short. I think they won 104 games that year. So, like, there was an expectation of this is what it is, this is what we do. So as a young player, I had the built-in safety net of veterans around me that had been through it, telling me what to expect. I had, Jason Isringhausen in the bullpen, and he's like, hey, this is what it's going to be like. This is the atmosphere. When you throw a pitch, this is what it's going to feel like. The crowd's going to feel different. Like, that part of it was really helpful. But what it's going to do for these guys and what it did for me, because 2005, we ended up losing in the NLCS to the Astros, which was a heartbreaker. 2006, go on to win the World Series. Amazing. And then the next year, 2007, like, I thought all you do when you play in the big leagues is you play the season and you go to October and you try to win a championship. Like, that's what I thought the experience was. And then 2007 is like, what is this? This sucks. Like, October watching, I remember being at home with some buddies, shooting pool at a local bar, and baseball's on, and I was like disgusted. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is not the way that it should be. So what it's going to do for these guys, and it will do inevitably, hopefully they're in October this year, if not in the near future, it's going to build them like that want to get there. And it's going to build them the toughness and the thought of, and for a lot of these guys, it's going to be hard to do, is the us, the us factor instead of the me. Because right now, and they're not a selfish team by any means, but any young player who's trying to stay in the big leagues, whether it's a pitcher, a hitter, there's a lot of thought about me. Like when you go home at night, it's like, man, I went 0 for 4 and struck out 3 times. It wasn't like, oh, so-and-so left that runner on second. No, you're worried about what you did. But when you're playing for something bigger, that we part of it gets even bigger. And that's what I'm excited for these guys. Like, for a young team to worry about themselves and worry about the way that they go about it, but to also see the team aspect of it even unveiled even more.
And a big reason for them getting back in this playoff push is what the starting rotation has done. BT, I find it interesting when you look at their numbers, because as a staff, they are 10th in baseball at a 3.94 ERA. Yet you then look at the expected numbers, and it says they should have a 4.61 ERA, which would be 22nd in Major League Baseball. Why do you think that this staff is defying those expected numbers, and do you think that it is sustainable for guys like Palante, Leahy, and McGreevy to be kind of the guys that are opposite of analytics, right? They're the ones that you look at the Baseball Savant page and say, you know what, it doesn't matter that there's a lot of blue on it. They're going to defy what the numbers say.
Yeah, again, in a world where we have all of these expected numbers, it's hard to say what is sustainable, right? Because the models that you're looking at, T-Bone, are the same ones that internally they look at with more data and other teams are looking at. And this is how, when you're looking for a free agent or drafting a guy or trading for a guy, you look at a lot of the expected numbers, even more so than you look at the numbers that are there. So can it continue to have success? I would say absolutely yes, especially as some of these guys start to develop more swing and miss. We've seen a lot more of that from Leahy. We've seen more of it from Palante. McGreevy, not as much, but like weak batted ball contact is what you're hoping for from him, and he has been steadfast pretty much all season long. It's hard to say if they can continue at this rate, but what I will say, I don't think that we've given enough credit to Dusty Blake, to Kyle Driscoll, to that entire pitching staff over there, because they have game planned for this group so well. They've prepared them so well. They've helped individuals continue to grow throughout the season, whether it's tinkering mechanically, tinkering with pitch grips, releases, just trying to figure out how to get them incrementally better. And then these guys putting in the work and doing it. It's been a real revelation. I don't know about you guys. That was a major concern of mine coming into this season, is how is this rotation going to look? Like, what are these guys going to be able to do? And they're doing it. And you do have to give credit to the defense behind them, because when you have the ball in play as much as it is, you better have a tight defense. Cardinals defense has been really solid. But, yeah, I look at these numbers, and I do feel like, especially for some of the individuals, it is very sustainable. Now, for others, it's a very big stretch run. I think the guy pitching today, I think Matthew Liberatore down the stretch, I want to see. He's one of my biggest questions of what is Libby in 2027? Where do they value him? What does he look like? How does he finish this season off? Because you need to have a little bit more clarity as to your rotation when it comes into the offseason. We know this offseason itself is going to be volatile with all of the labor issues, but you want to know what you're looking forward to moving in. But T-Bone, you asked the question, do you think that it's sustainable?
I think it's sustainable for some of them. I think, as you had mentioned, I think Kyle Leahy is one that I would bet on it being sustainable. I think when you have 6 pitches and you throw them 10% of the time or more, I think that helps you kind of ward off what the expected numbers might say, because you can keep guys off balance. And I think what you said, he's going to generate, I think, more swing and miss. Palante and McGreevy are the ones that I would say maybe it's sustainable for this year, but it wouldn't surprise me if their numbers came more back to earth, saying 2027.
That makes sense. And when for me, when I'm just looking at the movement profile, and I've told you guys in the past, McGreevy's one of my favorite guys to watch pitch. I just enjoy watching him go about it, watching him sequence. I love his demeanor out on the mound. But between the two of those, he and Palante, when I'm thinking about the success that they're having right now, which one is more sustainable? I might even lean towards Palante, just because of the movement profile of all his stuff. His stuff is funky. His four seam has nasty cut to it. He runs it up at 97. His sinker has become a real weapon to the right-handers, keeps him honest, and now he's proven that he can actually land his slider and his curveball 4-strike and then be able to chase off of it. So, those strides that he's been able to make this year have been huge. So he, to me, has been one of the biggest revelations, and when I say he, I mean Andre Palante, of 2026. He has, in my eyes, proven himself as a legit big league starter.
BT, we mentioned Leahy there, and he's coming up on an innings limit. I mean, the Cardinals have said so. They've been pulling him after 5 innings. They've got Quinn Matthews, who it seems are going to start when they get to that doubleheader next week in Cincinnati. Do you think, with Kyle Leahy in this innings limit, do you think he's going to start every 5th day and they just go 5 innings, and then they piggyback him with Quinn Matthews in the future? Do you think maybe Liberatore becomes the guy that they piggyback with him and they start Quinn Matthews in his spot? How do you think they're going to kind of maneuver this with Kyle Leahy and his innings limit moving forward?
Yeah, it is an interesting one for them, too. And another thing to think about, and I haven't even talked to Ollie about this, is when you are still in the thick of things for a wild card race. And if you are there, are you thinking about that too, as you keep going down the stretch of being able to have Leahy potentially available in the postseason, right? Fingers crossed if it happens. I know it's a bit of a long shot, but who knows? But the way that I see them working it right now with Kyle Leahy is I do think that he'll start every 5th, 6th day, depending on off days. They will limit him. It'll be 5 and dive. Sometimes it'll be 4 and dive, kind of depending on the elements and the stress of some of the pitches. I still think that he starts most of the games. Now, there might be a turn in the rotation where you have an opportunity to skip him, and maybe they do, but I think that's the way that they'll look at it going forward. But you want to make sure that this guy is healthy, because he has proven that he's going to be a part of it down the stretch.
Final one for Brad Thompson, Cardinals TV analyst, who is with us here on the Collier and Thompson hotline. BT, a lot of Cardinals fans obviously excited to see Joshua Baez. Now, it doesn't sound like he's getting called up for this weekend series, and frankly, we don't know when they're going to call call him up. But when we were talking earlier about the benefits of being in a playoff race, I'm fascinated to understand, the balance of bringing up a rookie who hasn't experienced Major League Baseball in the midst of a playoff push and how you evaluate that, but also how you applicate that guy to a roster that's in the midst of a playoff push.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. It is one that it is thrown right into the fire. But you remember what your goal is in this season. I believe this goal was figuring out what they have for the future. That's been the goal for the trade deadline. That was a goal in the offseason when Chaim Bloom and company shipped off 4 All-Stars, was about the future. And if they believe Baez is a part of the future, and there's no reason to believe that they don't think that's the case, then you got to give him an opportunity. That was easy to say. What you do is you plug him in there, you play him every day, and you probably put him in a place in the order where there's not a lot of pressure on him. You bat him 7th or 8th, like starting things off. And who knows, maybe he comes in at bat 2nd. I don't know. But I feel like you try to just take as much pressure off of him as you can and just say, hey, look, dude, you're gonna go through it. Guys in the big league level, they're going to exploit some things. We'll make some adjustments along the way, but this is about the greater good. And you think about all the experience down the stretch for a guy like Baez, potentially, whenever he gets called up, if he gets called up, that he would have going into 2027 and then 2028, when maybe you feel like you're even more ready to truly compete. It's such a valuable resource to be able to give a young player.
BT, man, always appreciate the insight. Enjoy your weekend up at Wrigley when you head up there, and we'll talk to you next Friday, hopefully continuing to talk about this playoff push for the Cardinals.
Can't wait. It's going to be fun. Yeah, Wrigley Field is no Holiday World, but I'll enjoy it regardless.
The good news is you won't have to wait in lines anywhere for an hour, but I heard the working conditions aren't the greatest, so a little bit more difficult.
You know what? Everybody's got different opinions about that because I like working there.
See?
I enjoy it.
This is why we get it. We get the insight.
Is it a little tight up in the booth? Sure. Can you back up in your chair? No. Are Chip and I basically sitting on the same seat? Potentially. But I like to call it cozy.
I've heard that when it gets windy, sometimes the broadcast booth will shake a little bit. So, it's all fine.
We just talked about it. I'm a thrill rider. I enjoy stuff like that.
That's a roller coaster for BT. Now, maybe not so much for Chip, but we'll find out. You're in a partnership together, right?
Can't wait. Can't wait.
Buddy,
we're going out together. All right, see you, boys.
We'll talk next week. Brad Thompson with us on the Collier and Thompson hotline. And again, T-Bone, like what he said there in terms of getting those players the understanding of how things work in this playoff push. And we've talked about this before. The ability to understand what winning is, I think, is the most important first step. Even if you don't make the playoffs, being in this type of race and understanding the climate of winning, that's where you really start to build something when you're Chaim Bloom and his staff.
Yeah, I think being in the playoffs, I think being in the playoff race is meaningful. It's not as meaningful as getting to October. That's when you really start to feel the pressure, and that's when games actually feel big.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, maybe they feel more than me, but this series is big. It doesn't feel like October.
No.
October's just different.
Yeah.
And that's why, I kind of want to see what they do when they get there, because, right now, as much as they want to say, yeah, we want these guys to try and experience winning baseball, and that's important, because right now, let's just be honest, most of these guys have come up as Cardinals as a losing organization. I'd like to see the organization actually show some urgency to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's why I don't understand some of the stuff that they're doing, like third base. I've talked about it all week. Why is Prieto getting this start today? Why is it not Blaze Jordan? I get Matthew Liberatore right now being in the rotation. Why is he going to be the guy that's the answer for them in the rotation? Once you get to a point when you can call up Quinn Matthews, I would just piggyback Libby with Kyle Leahy. Does that help me win? And probably not. Odds are not throwing Libby would help me win.
I think that's the stuck in between right now, and it's the weirdest spot to be in, but. We've talked about this so much, and not to sound like the broken record, but I understand where Chaim Bloom's at, and you have a path in place, and you want to stick to that. If you get to the playoffs, great. If not, we stick to the path with all of this thing. But you've put yourself in this position, and as we've talked about, for how easy your schedule is once you get to September, if you can go through the gauntlet for the next couple of weeks in terms of taking on the Cubs here, dealing with the Phillies again, the Dodgers at the end of August into September, if you stay in a playoff race and come up with victories in those, it is very realistic that you can have both worlds. It's just a matter of what are your guys made of, specifically in September. With Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, for the Cardinals to make the playoffs, who are the X factors that are going to have to help them down the stretch? We'll talk about that, but next, let's dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your chance to win a pair of single-day passes for the BMW Championship, August 18th through the 23rd at Belle Rive Country Club, including access to the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra. See the top PGA players in the world compete while enjoying the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra, located alongside the 7th green, featuring shaded seating and indoor lounge, a variety of food and beverage options for purchase, including off-site parking and shuttle service and more. Find your chance to win that pair of single-day passes for the BMW Championship at Belle Rive Country Club, including access to the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra Superior Light Beer. Right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer is presented by Bet365. With Bet365 early payout, you win even if they lose. Get paid out instantly when your team goes up big, even if they blow the lead later. Bet365. Winning is everything.
with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. As we dive into the junk drawer, and I think a lot of parents are going through this right now. T-Bone, so you can sit out of this one. Bradford, your kids are older now, so I don't know if you have the same feeling.
In different ways.
He cries happy tears.
Boy, I went through it yesterday.
Becky, you didn't hear that.
Yeah. So my oldest is now a kindergartner, and her first day of kindergarten was yesterday. My middle starts pre-K on Monday, and my youngest goes to the next level of Parents' Day out, so she's not in preschool yet. She's still a baby.
Boy, it's actually like coming real that they're growing up.
Oh my God. So we've taken so many pictures of it, and like you see them, how big they are. So, but Adelaide, my oldest, went to kindergarten, and throughout the summer I've been fine. It's like, she's not going away to college. She's young. But last year when she was in pre-K, she only went 3 days a week. She went Monday through Wednesday, and then she was home Thursday, Friday. They were full days. Now it's 5 days a week. She's going full time. And so she woke up Thursday morning, 6 a.m. Kid was super excited. She had her clothes on. She was like, Daddy, we're going to kindergarten. So excited about it. We're getting to the school. We park, still excited. Walking in, still excited. We get to the front door. She immediately turns on a dime and goes, Daddy, I don't want to go in. I want to go home. And I'm like, baby, what just happened? And so, like, I'm mentally thinking, it's like, well, this kid's ready to go. This is going to be easy. And so we walk through the school. She immediately grabs onto my arm and doesn't let go. We walk to her classroom. She goes behind me and grabs my shirt and will not let go. Mm-hmm. And so I have to kind of pull her into the classroom. Tears. I mean, this kid is bawling. And I don't know what to do. Like, the school starts at 7:45. I have to be out at 7:40. And I'm like, baby, like, you're going to be fine. You're going to have a great day. It's like mommy and daddy are going to pick you up. We're going to talk all about, I don't want to go. You're going to leave me. Bawling. There's 4 other kids crying as well. So at 7:45, I have to pull her off of me, put her in her seat, and walk out the door. Crying still. I stood in the hallway for about 5 minutes to where she couldn't see me, and the kid was just cowered with tears rolling down her eye, and God bless the teacher. She walked over to her, gave her a hug, told her it was going to be okay. I walked to my car in that parking lot. I sat in it for 45 minutes, scrolling through pictures of my daughter from 2 years ago, bawling my eyes out. I don't know how parents handle this. She's in damn kindergarten. This isn't even like 8th grade or high school. She's in kindergarten. I'm not going to be able to handle this parenting thing as they get older.
It gets easier after the first one, I think.
I don't think so.
That's day
Bradford
one.
Does it?
Buddy, that's day one. That's seismic stuff. You have been able to surpass now. Seriously, that is a huge, huge thing.
Oh my gosh. And like I knew,
it's typically, not all, but typically it's kindergarten. Once they get past the first couple days of kindergarten, it's like only, maybe sometimes first grade, maybe sometimes second, but it's typically the only time when like they'll cry the first couple days when school starts.
Katie took her today because mentally I couldn't handle it. I was like, I can't go back-to-back days of that. Like, that was too hard for me. Katie took her today, and Katie's like, oh, yeah, she hugged me and told me she was going to have a great day, and she gave me a kiss, and she walked right in. I go, well, what the hell did I get on Thursday?
Already accustomed to the routine.
But she is, and like we picked her up, and I knew it was going to be, everything's going to be fine. She's going to love it. Katie picked her up yesterday, and she came out and said, I loved it so much. It was fun. So I knew it was, but I don't know how to do that. Like, I'm like, I don't know how to handle my kids getting older. This is too difficult. So my middle goes to pre-K on Monday. I'm going to be crying a mess on that day as well. And then when my youngest goes, oh, God. Game over on this one.
You're going to be a mess when they leave for college.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm going to have to take, I told you guys yesterday, I'm going to have to take off the first day of school next year for them, because then all 3 of mine are going to be going full time, because my youngest will go to pre-K full time there. But like when high school happens and college happens, I'm going to have to take a whole week off.
What was the first thing she mentioned on the way home when things were obviously uplifted a bit, the spirits were higher, the takeaway message from day one? What was the thing she liked the most?
She said, I loved it. She said, Daddy, we got to play outside at recess.
Yeah.
And she said, Daddy, I have my own desk next to my friends. So she loved every second of it. But I'm like, oh, God. So parents out there that are handling these days, I'm with you in spirit. good luck, because my God, was yesterday difficult, and hopefully this gets a little bit easier moving forward. With Bradford Bruns and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm an adult who likes to cry in my car for 45 minutes. We'll take a break, and when we come back, for the Cardinals to make the playoffs, who are the X factors going to have to be for them down the stretch? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. Spread Zone.
Spread Zone, baby.
Where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. Hosted by Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto, this is the sports betting podcast for degenerates who swear they're one parlay away from early retirement. Whether you're chasing the juice, fading your own picks, or just here for the Schadenfreude, we've got you covered. Unlike half our bets.
Catch the latest episode of The Spread Zone on YouTube or at 101ESPN.com.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Cards and Cubs getting set to kick things off shortly out at Wrigley in game one of a massive three-game set out at Wrigley Field as the Cardinals enter this series 3 games back of a wild card spot. They're chasing down right now the Phillies, who they just took 2 of 3 from, 3.5 behind the Padres, and look, they're 9.5 back of the Cubs. You don't have to worry about this impacting them catching the Cubs, but it does impact them catching the Marlins, Diamondbacks, and the Phillies. But we've talked so much about the core 4 in terms of them carrying this team to a playoff berth. But beyond that, T-Bone, if this team is to make the playoffs, the X factors for this team down the stretch, who needs to be that for St. Louis, because I think you can go a lot of different directions in terms of the pitching staff, in terms of position players and role players that have struggled this season. But for you, X factor, if the Cardinals are to make the playoffs, who will you be looking back saying that was the guy that came through?
Okay, if I do a little bit of a cheat here and basically just group a bunch of 9 guys together basically here?
Absolutely not. You pick one and move on.
All right, I'm going to go the whole bullpen.
You can't do that.
I think if you want me to be more specific, I think it is probably Caleb Ferguson, Luis Gastelum,
Come on,
and maybe Justin Brule. I think it's how they get lefties out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
And honestly, you could probably throw Soriano into that because they mixed him in there a little bit when JoJo went down. I think it's going to be that grouping of guys because, the offense, we've seen it. If the top 4 is hitting, the Cardinals are a decent baseball team. Even if the rest of the lineup doesn't hit, we saw that at the beginning of the year. I remember you and I doing a show going, hey, 5 through 9, doesn't even make contact with the baseball.
It's just a black hole that doesn't touch the baseball.
And it's better now. It's not great, but it's better now. As long as your top 4 hits, you're fine. You look at the rotation, sure, Libby's been a problem for him. The rest of the 4 have been able to carry that to a top 10 ERA in baseball, which is shocking. It's the bullpen that's going to determine if this team's going to be a playoff team or not, in my mind. I look at the rotation, I think you're going to be fine. Leahy dealing with an innings limit sucks because he's been so good, and it kind of really is going to be something they're going to have to navigate. What's the thing that you look back on since the All-Star break and go, this is why the Cardinals have been losing? It's really been the bullpen. The offense had its struggles. They were up 7-0 in the game on Arizona, and they lost it. That wasn't because the offense didn't start hitting them. Part of that was, but it was mostly the bullpen. So I think it's those guys that are going to be, how do you get lefties out? Now that JoJo is gone.
Exactly.
Who is going to step up when you get to these lefty lanes? When they get late in the game today against the Cubs, if they've got a lead, how are you going to get Michael Busch out? How are you going to get PCA out? How are you going to get out Ian Happ when he switches over to the left side? All right, Soriano, that comes down to you. Brule, Ferguson, and Gastelum. I think those are the 4 guys for me that are kind of the big X factors for the Cardinals in this home stretch.
Bradford, do you have one specifically that pops out?
Honestly,
or
I like the collective there.
No,
I really do.
9 now.
Because I was thinking, guys, honestly, about taking it, making it a little full circle in the sense of today's starter, Matthew Liberatore. If you're able to actually see demonstrably better results for a stretch, for a month, for a couple of weeks from him.
The thing about an X factor is you have to have some upside there.
I know.
Well, he might.
Think of how that would shift.
His FIP's good.
And change the balance of power with respect to lengthening and deepening your rotation that much more. But obviously, the compelling reasons are there and then some when it comes to the bullpen. I think we all expected really this trickle-down or domino effect when JoJo Romero no longer became available to you. And we have seen some slightly diminished results and returns even from a George Soriano too because of the workload, partially due to that. If you can get an unheralded member of the back end of this bullpen or two to step up to take on more of a prominent, even high leverage roles, not only for this coming series in Chicago, who knows what's going to happen as far as the ball flying out as the weekend progresses at Wrigley Field, but the 5 games in 4 days versus Cincinnati, you're talking about really formidable lineups you're going to be facing on the road over the course of the next 10 to 11 days. We're going to learn a lot about them, and that could well dictate whether we're still talking about postseason viability in a week or so.
So I really like your bullpen, and I think...
Thank you, all 9 of them?
Yeah, all 9 of them. Nathan Church is one that I thought of, but the more I'm thinking about it, I think mine's Quinn Matthews.
That's a good one.
And it's because of Kyle Leahy's innings limit, because I think all of us are really comfortable with Andre Palante. All of us are, even through his struggles, are comfortable with Michael McGreevy figuring it out. The guys we're not comfortable with are Matthew Liberatore and Hunter Dobbins. And it's not so
you're
much
not comfortable with Dobbins?
It's not so much that I'm not comfortable with Dobbins. It's just an unknown.
I think he's going to give you that's fair. I was going to say, because I would say, not like I go into a start going, we're winning today, boys. Yeah. But I go into the start going, we've got a chance.
It's you're right. Yes, because with Liberatore I don't, but it's still an unknown because I just don't know what the outcome will look like versus with Leahy and Palante and McGreevy. I know they're going to fight to make sure it stays close. But why I put Quinn Matthews into this is if Kyle Leahy gets to an innings limit and this guy is not going to be able to use as much, the ability to avoid having to rely on those 9 guys becomes even more massive if Quinn Matthews is bad. Because let's say Leahy's only able to give you 3 innings through starts. If Dobbins is hit or miss, if McGreevy still hits his struggles and Liberatore stays in this rotation, that's two guys that I know are going to be able to hopefully, really one guy that I know is going to be able to give my bullpen rest. And for Quinn Matthews, if you can get him to come up and be reliable, not so much in the sense of what Leahy and Palante have been, but if he can be Dobbins, to where all I know is it will stay close, but it's still an unknown, that's what you really need. But, man, boy, if he could come up and have that swing and miss stuff and be somebody like a Kyle Leahy that can just give you competitive 5 innings to where you know he's going to be good, I think that opens up a lot more doors for the Cardinals, because the less you can rely on the rotation, the more you have to rely on the bullpen, and there's just too many unknowns in that bullpen. So Quinn Matthews would be mine for me.
Yeah, I thought about Quinn. The only reason that I decided, on the bullpen arms was because I just don't know how they're going to use him. Like if he ends up moving into Libby's spot and they decide to piggyback Libby with Leahy, then I think everything you said there is fair. Like, does this guy give you a shot to win on that day that's better than Matthew Liberatore? But if they're going to piggyback him with Kyle Leahy, how much of an X factor is that really? Sure, there's still some of that as he piggybacks, but, Leahy's the guy that kind of dictates the terms on that.
Yeah.
Or if he ends up starting in Leahy's spot, can he be as good as Kyle Leahy has been? So he is an X factor. I just don't know what his role is, and it made it tough for me. I do think what you started to say about Nathan Church, though, is one thing that I think will be interesting to see is who's going to become kind of that fifth guy. And I think it's going to have to kind of rotate through over the next month and a half. Nathan Church has been on a little bit of a heater here of late. Are you going to get that platoon in center field that when they go up against a lefty, maybe it's Pereira that ends up being that guy for you against left-handed pitching? They probably do need one more bat to just get hot so they can lengthen out the lineup a little bit more. But I think that's going to be kind of a rotating cast. There might be a 2-week stretch where you're like, wow, look at Nathan Church. And then there might be a 2-week stretch where it is, all right, wow, now it's Mason Wynn, okay? Right. Or maybe it's Jimmy Crooks gets hot. I do think they're going to need one more bat to kind of step up here over the final month and a half if they're going to be a legitimate threat for this playoff push. And one of those names could just be Joshua Baez whenever they call him up here.
Baez, Church, Wynn, hell, even a Jose Fermin, who has been an X factor a lot this season for the Cardinals. Maybe he just becomes an everyday player at a different position. So I think offensively there's a lot of options that can become X factors. It's the pitching side, whether it's the bullpen or a Quinn Matthews. They become true X factors for this Cardinals team to get to the playoffs, because the offense can carry them, but can the pitching keep it so that the offense can win games rather than do as much as they possibly can, but still find a way to lose. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. In 15 minutes, we'll get into one's got to go. You send us 3 scenarios. We will tell you which one's got to go. But coming up next, if this happens, it'd be quite the season for both Illinois and Mizzou. So we'll get to that next year on 101 ESPN.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Have we had this segment on our rundown, T-Bone?
Just a couple days, Monday maybe.
A couple of weeks, I thought. But
you picked the right day.
Mizzou defense conversation.
Oh, that's
been
right.
On there for
we still won't
weeks.
get to that today. But anyway, Bill Connolly of ESPN. We talk a lot about Bill. He's got great work over at ESPN. But he released his preseason college football SP Plus rankings. So Bill Connolly, all the numbers. I think we've had him on the show a couple of times. Basically sets it up for an enjoyable season for all of us with Mizzou and Illinois. So Bill's got Mizzou at 19. The offense was 24th and defense was at 15th. That's impressive, the fact that you're bringing back 11 new faces to get the 15th defense in terms of the preseason college football rankings. Bradford doesn't even think that's possible.
What? Bradford, all right. Bradford, talk to me. What's going on
What happened,
there?
Bradford?
So you're telling me that somehow this defense, which returns and now returns Sterling Webb, it comes in, it's projected to finish 15th. I'm not saying that there isn't talent. I'm not saying that you don't have imports, transfer additions galore. But right now, you have no continuity from one year to the next. And give me the guy. I'm saying this. Yeah, I know. Captain Mizzou, especially when BK isn't here.
What a nickname.
For a defense right now that doesn't necessarily have the edge presence, the stalwart, the likes of a Robinson, a Walker Jr., even from last season, Darius Smith is going to be your number one. Where is the sustained pass rush, to say nothing of creating some havoc in the secondary? Okay, take it.
But isn't Mizzou known for being able to develop defensive players left and right?
That's true, especially on the D-line. But from one year to the next, usually you're bringing up some valuable reps. You're carrying them over. I'm not saying that this defense is going to be bad by any stretch of the imagination, but this year it could lag in the early going behind the offense. The offense had better hit the ground running under the new OC Chip Lindsey, regardless of whether you see Hardy right away.
Captain Mizzou is not on board with this.
Just
T-Bone.
fired up. I'm fired up. I'm realistic. I mean,
look, if this happens, and honestly, 19 would be great. Offense being 24th, I think, is the part that would get me super excited. Because, that's an offense that you can dream on what it looks like next year, right? You get the returns on your new quarterback, and on top of having a guy like a Luke Bidet, who was so fun to watch last year, and you're adding in the running game, which I know it's the last year of Ahmad Hardy, but we know the running factory that is Missouri football.
Sure.
If your offense could be that, defense, we talk about it all the time. I just kind of revert to they're going to be fine. Offensively, man, if you could get the returns in that front, I'm feeling a lot more excited about what the future looks like.
Yeah, I think they're fascinating because, Bradford mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts on that side of the ball for the defense for Mizzou. And, we know the running game's going to be fine, right? You got Hardy, you've got Roberts, those guys, that's a two-headed monster whenever Hardy ends up being back on the football field.
Yeah.
You got Luke Bidet, which is an awesome wide receiver. The quarterback is the big question mark for him. But, I think the floor, Bradford, you tell me if you agree with this since you're the Captain Mizzou guy.
PK's going to have a word about that, too, by the way.
Yeah.
I welcome it.
I think when you look at them, Simmons is where it gets interesting to determine, but the floor is high for me for this Mizzou football team. I think the ceiling is one that is something to dream on with Simmons, the pieces that were added defensively. That is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But I feel even if you don't get answers on the defensive side of the ball that aren't great, let's just say it's average, and Simmons is just average, with how good the running game is, I feel they're still got a pretty high floor, which is 7 wins this season.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you whatsoever. I do think that we have to factor this into consideration right here, right now, approaching the tail end of August. Look, you do have a considerably harder schedule as well. Okay, you've got Arch Manning rolling into town. Your home games are considerably tougher for that matter. One area that we're not quite underlining enough, that we're not emphasizing enough, guys, I truly believe that Austin Simmons has the skill set, all right? He was Wally pipped in Oxford. It's not as if he lost the job due to performance. He got injured in week number 2, and you couldn't replace Trinidad Chambliss moving forward. He took your program to the CFP. Through no fault of Austin Simmons, his own, that's how it happened. Now, you do have maybe some boom or bust tendencies. You've got all the talent conceivably in the world, but what we're not talking about enough is, remind me again of the hand, of the arm with which Austin Simmons delivers the football. He's a lefty. He's a southpaw. And here you are 10 practices in to fall camp. Yeah, you've got a couple of weeks remaining until that big-time opener against none other than Arkansas Pine Bluff. You don't know who your right tackle is going to be. That's the equivalent of your left tackle this year. That's big. Cannon Green is your dude. He's your pillar. He kicked out wide. He kicked out to left tackle. Who is that guy going to be? It's not Josh Atkins. It's not the much ballyhooed guy you brought in as a transfer from Arizona State. He's injured for basically the majority of the season. You have to get that figured out, because if one domino falls in that regard, honestly, a lot of things could go wrong on the O-line, because you need that balance. You need to make sure that you are shored up on the right side first and foremost.
Hey, it could be worse, Bradford. We could be Illinois.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
We were 28th in the preseason SP Plus rankings.
41st in defense.
Yeah, that felt about right.
Do you think your offense can outperform a 41st ranked defense?
No, I couldn't believe that they were 28th on this ranking. I saw that and was like, wow, hey-o. That would be awesome.
That Big Ten. The good part for T-Bone is he's already self-aware of this, and he's not going into it being frustrated.
6-6 this year, yeah. This isn't like, what was it, last year or 2 years ago? I think it was last year.
Yeah.
Where I said, hey, it's playoff or bust, because, I mean, everything had kind of crescendoed to that. Right? Like they had Altmaier back for one more year. I thought the running game was a question mark. I thought the O-line was a question mark, but they had a decent receiver coming back. The defense had Akis that was going to be back. Like they had pieces, and then they lost their top corner in, I think, the Indiana blowout loss, and then it was just like the wheels came off, and it was just they weren't going to be the team, and that's kind of how I feel. Like I think even for Missouri, like this is kind of a rebuilding years for both of these programs, to where like if they make the playoff, great. Like I mean, it would be shocking to me. If both these teams went 6-6 or 7-5, I would go, all right, at least the program didn't just like go full belly up and just completely flop and not even make a bowl game. Like that, these programs, Bielema should have a floor of 6 wins in a season. Drinkwood should have a floor of like 6 to 7 wins in a season. And then hopefully in another year or two, we're looking at these programs and going, okay, they're back into, they've rebuilt, they're on that crescendo again. Now it's time to push for a playoff
I think
spot.
next year's that for Mizzou, and I'll be fascinated to see with Illinois too of what they can do in the transfer portal on top of what they can accomplish this year.
Let me tell you about their portal class this year.
Well, you get that punter though. You mentioned it real quick though, the playoff or bust, T-Bone. Like how many teams in college football are entering a have to win all in season this year?
I think a couple that stand out to me. One would be Texas. I think all in, Arch Manning, probably final year that you've got him if everything goes well.
Totally with you.
Finally should be the year that Sark is finally able to cash in with that roster.
Because he really altered that coaching staff, too. You think about the addition of Will Muschamp. It wasn't the defense last season that sabotaged Texas. It was that offense, so we shall see.
Yeah, and then the other one that I would throw in this, because some of these programs will rebuild and reload. I don't know if you're ever going to see, actually, I guess I got two for you. I don't know if you're going to see Notre Dame have this easy a schedule
That's
again.
what I thought
and
of.
they are loaded and should be a really good team.
Like that one.
Got a really good quarterback over there. And the other one I would throw in here, now they're a little bit different because they've got a 5-star waiting in the wings, Oregon.
Those are the two I thought of, Notre Dame and Oregon.
Dan Lanning, dude, you're good in the regular season. Are we going to finally come through in the playoff? I mean, that roster is stacked. They are the team that I think is going to win it all this year, Oregon. But I can't help but shake. But I feel that way about them every year we go to the playoff, and then they like no show when they get to the CFP.
When does Dan Lanning turn into James Franklin narrative?
Oh, that's a great question.
Because it feels like you're pretty darn close to it.
At least he's won some big games in the regular season. Like that was the thing with Franklin. Like
could win the
they'd show up, the top 25 team would roll into Penn State and just beat the crap out of them in the regular season.
But you get all of the hype in the preseason. You get all of the hype for the roster that you've put together, but then you never seem to top what the expectations are. Like, and I don't even know if it's winning the whole damn thing, but it's getting to the college football championship. That's where it feels like it's hey, you need to start doing something. Dan Lanning's still one of the best coaches, though. I don't think they'd ever move on from it. But how long do you go without getting to that what you need to?
Is the fan base in Eugene, though, going to hold him as accountable as you would be held in Happy Valley? That's the thing. You still feel as if you're a bit removed out there, right, in Eugene, Pacific Northwest. Not that the expectations aren't mammoth, but you have a longer leash, I think, due to the climate. And it's funny, guys, we're only basically talking about here, not a coincidence, the SEC and the Big Ten, for that matter, because we're not even bothering to really think of the Big 12. We're not even bothering to think of the ACC.
Yeah, who's the Big 12 and ACC that you got? Clemson?
I mean, you know what? Dabo basically signed his
Miami might be
certificate.
on this list. I think there's a chance Miami's on this list. I mean, they went out and they went to the portal. They sabotaged Duke and went out and got their quarterback in Mensa.
Yeah.
They've got Malachi Tony, who's a stud at wide receiver. And, I mean, they were a very good team last year. And now it's just a question of, can they get over the hump, right? I mean, you mentioned the ACC. They should be the odds-on favorite. They were odds-on favorite last year, and they somehow had some bad losses on their schedule.
How about everybody's pariah and favorite punching bag in the Big 12? I don't think there's a more hateable team nationwide than Texas Tech, okay? After the Sorsby saga, we know that the program, in terms of spending money, in terms of financing everything, that's not going away. But if you don't make waves this year in the CFP, last year you made it, you qualified, you won your first league title, and then you also, a la Oregon, had a dud in the CFP. For all of the bluster and the bravado that goes along with the Red Raiders, that's another team that's expected to be top 8 and expected to be at the cream of the crop, the top of the league.
I don't know if they are. I mean, I think they view it as they're all in. I don't know if it is like playoff championship or bust for them this year, because I think it would have been that if Sorsby was playing under these gambling allegations.
Fair.
They finally caved and kicked Sorsby off the team. So I don't know like what to really expect out of them. I don't know that there's a Big 12 team that I look at and say they're all in. They need to be a team that wins the Natty this season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fascinating season with a lot of those teams in terms of the all-win and for how dominant some of the teams typically are with Ohio State and Indiana and Georgia and Alabama.
DeBoer probably needs to win a title to not be fired.
Who?
DeBoer.
Oh, yeah.
Roll Tide.
Yeah, well,
CFP
he was almost
good
fired
enough,
after
is
this
it?
year.
No.
It's not. I don't care if you're ranked 11th, 15th, preseason, whatever. You'd better figure out a way.
Yep.
In January.
All right, Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. Cardinals already through one inning. We got a 0-0 game, so unscathed for Matthew Liberatore as we wait to find out when that blow-up inning might be. Coming up at 15, we'll hit the rewind, but coming up next, you send us 3 scenarios. We will tell you which one has to go. It's one's got to go. Our Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. We'll get to those next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Wrigleyville ready for matinee action. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update delivered by Universal Windows Direct. Sitting 3 games back of the NL's final wildcard spot, St. Louis embarks on an extended road trip right now. Cardinals-Cubs scoreless through 1 inning. Matthew Liberatore opposing Clay Holmes. College pigskin Mizzou completes its 10th fall camp session. NFL-wise, 101 ESPN presents Broncos-Falcons tonight. Fastlane, Bo Nix will not play as Denver's QB remains sidelined after offseason surgeries on his right ankle. Tomorrow, NFC West heavyweight Los Angeles traveling to Kansas City. This Sports Center update was powered by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. This is BK and Ferrario. Time now for One's Gotta Go. We offer up the talking points, and you get to pick which one's gotta go on 101 ESPN.
Count that big pen. Hello, it's Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Time for a Friday staple. It's One's Gotta Go. You send us 3 scenarios. We'll tell you which one's got to get up on out of there. Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. Also our YouTube channel, The Graveyard Chat at 101 ESPN STL. Let's start with this one. One's Gotta Go. The hot, humid summer day, a frigid, cold winter night, or a nice fall afternoon.
Well, that one stays.
Oh, absolutely it does.
Please.
I would get rid of the heat. I don't know how I ever used to play tennis in this stuff.
I can do heat.
I walked outside this morning and went, holy smokes.
I can do heat. I can't do humidity, man.
Yeah, I'm with you there. If it's not humid, it's not bad.
If it's hard for me to like take a breath, I don't even know what the point is of being outside. Like, it's just awful.
This has really flipped for me in just the last couple of years. I can't do the extreme frigid cold any longer, particularly when we're talking about, I shudder, honestly, to think about what late November could be like in Columbia. Traveling to those Tiger games, the wind is whipping. That's the factor there. That's not only your X factor, that's the primary factor.
It's funny how both I choose to not be outside, but one I can dress appropriately for, the other one there's nothing I can do.
I don't say I love it, but the thing that you can do with the cold is you can just add layers, right? Yeah. Like to where you can make it manageable. It's frowned upon to take your pants off when it's super hot outside.
And that's true. And in this weather, even taking your pants off isn't going to make it better.
So it's frowned upon, Bradford.
I put so many hand warmers in my body with that Winter Classic with Wrigley.
No.
I mean, they were in my shoes. They were in my boxers. They were in everything.
Anytime like I've gone to a basketball game, like when I went a couple years ago, Illinois was hosting, I can't remember who it was, up in Champaign. It was like negative 20 degrees walking to the stadium. Like it hurt your face to be outside, but I had multiple layers on to where like I could kind of deal with it.
Just cover your face up.
Yeah.
And sometimes, Tanner, it's second nature. You don't even realize you have that many layers on.
Exactly.
Very true. Yeah. From the 417, one's got to go iconic baseball stadiums. Wrigley, Yankee Stadium, Dodger, or Camden Yard. Dodger stays, Wrigley stays. I think it's between Yankee and Camden.
I've been to Camden. That's a really cool stadium.
That's Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
I think cool Yankees got to go. I feel like when BK talked about it, and it's one of those destinations that I wanted to try, but when BK talked about it, man, it just sounds like a normal cookie cutter place. It's just got history.
Yeah, I've never been to that one or the Dodgers. I've been to Wrigley. I'll be honest. I'm saying this twofold. One, I hate the Cubs. 2, I actually am not a fan of Wrigley Field. Yeah. I would get rid of it. And look, I get it. It has the history to it, but the history of like the way it is built to where like you can be sitting and there's a pole in your way, it's just annoying to me. So I would get rid of Wrigley.
Well, don't sit in that seat then.
Dodger Stadium doesn't have that. Yankee Stadium, I don't believe has that. Camden Yards definitely doesn't have that because I've been.
Confirmed.
I would get rid of Wrigley Field. Just the whole idea, and it's not even like I'm sitting in front of the pole. It's there, and like even if I'm not sitting right behind it.
I also don't want to pee in a trough, so if that's the thing, I'm out on that.
You know what? Let's pile on the day of the series opener. Why not? I've been to Camden, co-signed there. Yankee Stadium, I don't want to take away the specter of Monument Park. Wrigley, let's just do away with it.
One's got to go Cardinals Prospects Edition. Alexander Frias, Joshua Baez, or Brandon Clark?
Whoa.
Definitely not the last one. Not now.
Yeah, him throwing 100s too sexy.
I think it comes. I mean, Clark, you keep as many pitchers as possible. I really think it comes down to Baez or Frias, and because Frias is further away, I'd probably get rid of Frias.
That's what I was thinking. Baez, we know what the tools are. Frias is still more. You've got an idea of what his tools are, but he's more of a projection. If he was at like AAA and doing that, it would be closer. But because he's not, and he's further away, I agree with you. I'd say Frias.
You can be enticing, but you still have to go. That's a tough one.
This is an interesting one from Vizzini. I'd like to know where his mind was at. One's got to go: a brutally hot car seat, a drink of spoiled milk, or watching your team lose a Game 7. I mean, all of those are just awful.
Spoiled milk.
Yeah, I think it would be spoiled milk. None of the other ones are going to make me vomit.
Yeah, hot car seat, that would hurt. Game 7, like, look, don't get me wrong, that stings, but you get over it.
And you will have reached that point. You made it to a Game 7.
Yeah, I experienced it just a couple years ago with the Pacers. I would say spoiled milk. That sounds disgusting.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that. This one's courtesy, I guess, for me from the 412. One's got to go: dropping your kid off edition. Kindergarten, high school, college. Well, I don't think you're dropping your kid off at high school.
Yeah.
At least I don't remember anybody wanting to drop me off. I was told to take the bus until I could drive.
No. As in, it has to go because of the stress, the ordeal.
Yeah, like
which
sending them to high school. I can understand that. For me, I think mine would be college. Look, as hard as kindergarten was, I can't even imagine. Like we talked about off air, your daughter that just went through this.
Yeah.
Donnie's daughter is doing this next week. Like, I can't fathom the idea of me leaving my kids somewhere and then driving away. That, to me, like, it's one thing to do school. I know I'm going to pick you up at 3. It's another that I'm not going to see you for 2 months. So that one would have to go.
My parents enjoy being empty nesters, then.
It means they love you, big boy.
At a certain point, it kicks in for
I think
everyone,
mine did too, but it was
right
because
away.
I stayed home as long as possible. I was 26 when I finally moved out, and they were like, thank God.
I can't even answer this one because I don't have kids. This is up to you guys.
College is absolutely brutal.
I feel like it's got to be the hardest one.
Kindergarten in retrospect as well. I mean, high school doesn't even enter into the equation, frankly.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah, I feel like high school is the easiest one in terms of maybe senior year of high school would be difficult because it's the last one. From the 314, one's got to go: last thing to do on summer vacation. Go to a water park, go to a lake, go to a swimming pool. Water park would be the one I'd get rid of.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like everybody's going to a water park in the summer.
Water park's got maybe some rides, maybe a wave pool.
Is it weird that I don't like water rides?
Not at all.
Maybe it's the older person in me now, but it's like I don't want to wait 45 minutes to go down a water slide for 5 seconds.
I enjoy a leisurely water
Give me
ride.
a damn lazy river any day of the week.
Oh, those are the best.
Give me a lazy river. If I was a millionaire, I would build a lazy river in my backyard. Like, those are the best.
What if you added river to that
river would
set
go.
of-
A river
okay.
float trip?
I don't think I could.
I'm not that guy.
I don't like float. I've only done like a couple, and I don't like any. Like, I'm not a heavy drinker, and like the idea of getting drunk in the heat on the river. Plus, I don't like knowing what's underneath me.
Yeah, see, I would just prefer to be in the water because, like what you said, where you're floating up there, you're just like cooking. I never understand like back home there's a lake, so we go on the lake and I enjoy it. But I'm like in the water, floating around. Like my mom and sister just like floating on floaties. I'm like, aren't you guys like cooking like food up there? What is going on? Get in the water.
That one float trip would probably be the worst in any of these scenarios. But I think the water park in this one has to go because
I would keep the water park. I'd get rid of the pool. Most pools are just kind of boring.
I mean, I'm with you there, but like I'd rather be sitting in a pool than standing in line to get in the water. And then you do it so quick.
What if hypothetically you've worked at a certain water park for 2 years? Then you'd probably have a different take.
Oh, yeah, I can understand that one. That one, you'd probably despise it. I can only imagine with those people. Final one here from the 636. One's got to go Mizzou leaving edition. Michael Porter Jr., Mark Mitchell, or Mike Anderson?
This one's easy. Frankly, the fact that even though he was a native son, literally, the family, everybody knows about the connection of the Porters to Mizzou. Mark Mitchell now, boy, is it ever going to pain the fan base. I'm going to say it. You guys talked about it yesterday. It would seem as if there's going to be this relationship potentially with Kentucky. Mike Anderson had some unbelievably good teams. Did you get to the Elite Eight? Did you get to the Final Four for that matter? No. But Michael Porter Jr. played a grand total of, if I'm not mistaken, guys, off of the top of my head, 3 games with the University of Missouri-Columbia. The stardom never came to fruition, really through no fault of his own, but we couldn't remember that properly, okay? We couldn't commemorate it. We wonder what would have been.
Yeah, I think Michael Porter would be
Mine
the one.
would beat that, too.
He's the one that,
the hype was there. It was the ultimate hype.
If you were a casual Mizzou fan, like in a decade, when he's out of the NBA because he's still in the league, I could see him being like this fun trivia question where, sometimes you go to like Hockey Reference or Baseball Reference, you go, oh, I forgot he was a Cardinal. Like, it will be one of those for him because, again, if you're a casual fan, if you're a diehard fan, like, the excitement was real. But as a casual fan, like, you even forget he played in college because Bradford tried. He played like in 3 games for Missouri.
Are you still in the league if you're in Brooklyn, the NBA, that is?
Wow.
Anyway, non sequitur, I guess.
Damn, Bradford just
Come on
throwing shade out there. Look, just because he only played 3 games isn't his fault. You can still like him. Bradford Bruns.
Missouri shouldn't be an SEC school. You're going to throw shade at people.
I think Mizzou fans would probably prefer to go back to the old conference.
I don't know. There's a lot of money in the SEC.
That's fair. The SEC's very nice in doing what you're doing.
Drake would have definitely left if they were in the Big 12.
You wouldn't be pulling in this many transfers in the portal if you didn't have it. With Bradford Bruns and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind and close it down on a Friday here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
The NFL preseason is on ESPN. Tonight, Falcons and Broncos. Pregame at 5:30, kickoff at 6. Your destination for the NFL in St. Louis is 101 ESPN.
Listen.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Hey, 101 ESPN has your chance to win a pair of single-day passes for the BMW Championship happening next week, August 18th through the 23rd at Belle Reve Country Club. The passes include access to the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra. See the top PGA players in the world compete while enjoying the Trophy Club presented by Michelob Ultra. Find your shot to score a pair of single-day passes for the BMW Championship at Belle Reve Country Club right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app. Hey, if you missed anything from our show today, including lots of great Cardinals conversation, we talked with Brad Thompson prior to this Cardinals Wrigley series opening up, and of course we talked a little hockey with Mike McKenna, Macadoodle Mike. You could check it out on the podcast page after the show today, which is brought to you by Schaefer Door Company. You can also check it out on the 101 ESPN app. Super simple, Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. And while you're there, make sure you check out the newest episode of the Redbird Report. T-Bone and BK had one yesterday that dropped. You can also watch it on the YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. We'll have a new episode of Last Minute Blues podcast on Wednesday. Bradford's got one. College Football Connection, talking Mizzou with Brett Norfleet. So lots of great content for you over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. For those that aren't following along on Apple TV, the Cardinals and Cubs right now headed to the bottom of the third, still 0-0 baseball game. So pretty decent outing so far for Matthew Liberatore. But again, kind of waiting for that blow-up inning. Hopefully it doesn't happen for him and you could start to get a little bit positive reinforcements here. But bigger picture, T-Bone, for this weekend series, this one's massive. If you want to keep your playoff hopes alive, I think taking 2 of 3 is going to be most important. Now, you're not seeing 2 lefties in this series anymore. As we found out prior to the start of this one, they're pushing back Imanaga's start, and it sounds like Edward Cabrera is getting the start later on this weekend. So 2 righties, 1 lefty that you're going to match up with. The impact of this series could be everything for the Cardinals, and I'll be fascinated to see how they go about it.
Yeah, and so far, Libby, to your point, has been good through 2 innings. It looks like he's getting ready to go back out there for the bottom of the third. 32 pitches, 1 strikeout, hasn't allowed a base runner.
Nice.
You know, I'll be curious to see how aggressive they are with him, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm Ollie, I'm probably going 5 and dive, and if it's still 0-0 and low pitch count, I'd go to the bullpen, you know? So, yeah, I'll be curious to see how quickly he's going to kind of keep him in there. But you're right. I mean, it's a big series for them, right? They were able to take 2 of 3 from Philadelphia. They beat Christopher Sanchez. They beat Zach Wheeler. First team all season to beat those guys when they start back-to-back games. First time all season the Phillies had lost back-to-back starts from those guys. Can't let this series kind of let the air out of the balloon and what's going to be. I know the Reds aren't very good. Pitching in Cincinnati is very difficult, and that's always going to be a tough spot. And they got 5 coming up there. You want to try and take 2 or 3 here so you get a little bit of wiggle room for that Red series.
I'm with you there a bit on the opposite side of the coin, though, because if Liberatore in this start series opener proves to continue to display some of that efficiency, I wonder if you stretch him, if you can, just a bit, because think about how the rest of the series sets up. Think about how tomorrow you've got McGreevy going head-to-head against the one lefty. This series for Chicago in Matthew Boyd. McGreevy really pushed in his last turn to get to 102 against Colorado. Length has been an issue for him lately. Maybe you get a pleasant surprise as far as the output today from Liberatore.
The part that's going to be even more fascinating is the decisions that the Cardinals front office makes if they win this series and take 2 of 3 against the Cubs, because then you really are in the thick of this playoff race. It doesn't matter the amount of games you're back. You beat the Phillies, you beat the Cubs, you got an easier schedule for the rest of the way. You know, do they prioritize getting Joshua Baez up here to field that? Do they prioritize getting Quinn Matthews as a starter? You know, what do they do in terms of the innings limit with Kyle Leahy? That is going to be because you're deeper into that in-between of competing, but also focusing on the future. And if you take 2 or 3 against the Cubs, fans are going to be all aboard that conductor train of this team pushing for a playoff spot.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, we talked a little bit about this on the Redbird Report, BK and I did. How can they thread that needle? You know, and that's going to be something to keep your eye on. You know, I think they got caught in between in that first game against the Phillies. Will they try and bring up a hot hand like Nolan Gorman if they take 2 or 3 here, bring him up to that Reds ballpark? It'll be fascinating to see. It's it's exciting. You know, I think a lot of fans are more on board with this version of them in the playoff race because they sold at the deadline and they got assets in return rather than in years past where they would go out and they would spend, you know, assets to go bring in like pieces that marginally improve their roster.
Yeah, so we'll see what it looks like. We'll talk about this on Monday. BK will be back with us. Appreciate Bradford stepping in today, doing a great job as he always does. Again, if you missed anything from the show, check it out on our podcast page afterwards. The Fast Lane coming up next from 2 to 6. Have a great weekend. Stay cool. Enjoy the Fast Lane starting next.
The Redbird Report, your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com.